Go. Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by none other than SuperDraft, superdraft.io, or download it in the App Store. I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I'm Dave Lochran, with me, Adam Scher, and of course, welcome to all of you who have decided to hang out with us today. Build your lineups with us. Kick it on over to Live Before Lock up till 7 p.m. and make a night of it. Adam, what's up, brother?
How's it going, man? Pretty different slate today, I think.
Yeah, some monster totals and a lot to talk about. We're going to definitely need the full hour here, so we'll jump right into it. Before we do, it is SuperDraft. They are the sponsor of the Deeper Dive, and they keep doing big things over there without salaries. How about that? Tonight, $7,000 up top, $36,000 NBA jump shot. And by the way, if you haven't checked out their PGA contest, those are also a lot of fun. $2,000 to first place on their biggest contest, kicking off on Thursday morning. If you haven't signed up yet, you want to use the promo code Awesemo. It's AWESEMO. It gets you $20 in free super cash, as good as cash to be used on the site to play and win real money when you sign up using Awesemo and deposit $100 or more. So you deposit $100, boom, you got $120. Simple as that. Go to superdraft.io or download it in the App Store. And if you're unfamiliar with the format, there aren't any salaries. What does that mean? Well, you have the multiplier mode. So let's take tonight's slate, for example, right? You've got 8 games and you've got a decent amount of players at the top. So someone like, let's say, LeBron James is going to have a 1x multiplier. So essentially, whatever he scores is what he gets. No more, no less. It's exactly right. If you take somebody else like a Zion Williamson, he's going to have, and for some reason, I can't get in. Okay, here we go. So Zion Williamson on tonight's slate has a multiplier of, oh, screw it. I'll use, because I for some reason something's going on. I'll use Brandon Ingram, 1.35 multiplier for Ingram, 1.4 for Tobias Harris. So that's how it works. Essentially, the better players, the best players that would be $10,000, $11,000 on DraftKings or FanDuel have the lower multipliers, and the quote unquote value plays or the punts have the higher multipliers, and that's how you build your lineup. So if you wanted to put 100 or really 7 of the best players into your lineup, you can without restriction, but it's not necessarily the right way to go, especially on days where there's a ton of value available across the board. So there it is. It's superdraft.io. Check it out today. Use the promo code Awesemo. Get your $20 in free super cash, and we'll see you over there. All right, man, you ready to jump into this? We got 8 games to knock out here.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, Charlotte, San Antonio. We have some injury news on this one. Fortunately, we had it earlier in the day. LaMarcus Aldridge is out. Marco Bellinelli is out for the Spurs. On the other side, Devontae Graham sidelined for the Charlotte Hornets. They're 4-point dogs at home, 212 total, which should surprise nobody, is the lowest on this slate. 107.5 implied for the Spurs, 103.5 for the Hornets. Let's start with the Hornets here and talk about the impact no Devontae Graham has on this team. I ran it today on Wowie with Malik Monk off the floor as well, just to see if the numbers changed at all. Terry Rozier has a 26.2% usage rate, 33% assist rate, and 1.14 fantasy DraftKings points per minute. Those are solid numbers. He's definitely plummeted back down to earth following a nice start to the season, him and Graham. But here you have him today, Adam, at a pretty discounted price point against the Spurs team that ranks bottom 5 in defensive rating over the last month. Is the Terry Rozier chalk going to be worth it today?
I'll be going there. I mean, obviously, it's kind of scary because it's Terry Rozier, but I think that it is important, and you mentioned it, to note the difference between. So the last time you had Graham out, for one, Malik Monk was in, and for two, Charlotte was playing the Indiana Pacers. Now they're playing the Spurs, who are not as good a team as the Pacers defensively, not even close. So both of those things work in Rozier's favor. He should play big minutes here. Without Monk or Graham on the floor, you have a 26.9% usage rate, 32.8% assist percentage, and he's cheap. He's 5,700 on FanDuel. He's 6,100 on DraftKings. Obviously, he burned us recently. We've had some other, what I think were good chalk plays burn us recently, but that's going to happen. You can't let it affect your decision making the next day. And so I'll be going back to Rozier here just because I think he's clearly underpriced for his role and matchup.
How about the rest of this team? Taking a look at our ownership projections over at Awesemo.com. You've got Terry Rozier up there, Miles Bridges, and these will update throughout the night as we get closer to lock. Both of them expected to be very popular. Cody Martin being another one of those. Jalen McDaniels getting some love. Bismack Biyombo. I mean, right now you're looking at a Hornets team that's projected to be very, very popular. That's both scary and potentially exploitable because they're either very cheap or higher owned than they should be. How are you going to navigate a team like this that, like you said, has burned a lot of people? And a lot of that is because first of all, they play at the slowest pace in the league and they're just not good. But let me ask you this. Is Graham and Malik Monk being out, both of them, and facing the Spurs? We kind of just touched on this. Is that enough to really have this much love for the Hornets?
I think so, especially so the way I see it is more I doubt that I end up with a lot of lineups where I'm just like jamming in multiple guys from Charlotte, kind of like last night with Cleveland. It was a little bit different because they were more shorthanded than Charlotte is. But at the same time, that's a lot of usage coming out of the lineup. For the season, Devontae Graham has a 25% usage percentage. Malik Monk is at 22.9. If you looked at more recent games, Graham comes down a bit, but Monk goes up. So you're talking about two of the highest usage guys on the team coming out of the lineup. Miles Bridges' usage rate has been up recently, up around 22%, and he should play big minutes. And I think he's cheap. He's at a forward position that's not that strong. Cody Martin, I expect to play around 30 minutes. He's not a very productive player, but he's also not very expensive. So I think those guys are pretty useful just as far as like filling out your lineup. They don't project well enough where I expect that I'm getting many lineups with tons of Charlotte guys in the same lineup. Rozier would be the only guy that really projects as like a great play across the slate. But I do think that these other Charlotte guys are still underpriced given the increase in usage and the fact that they are missing bodies here. I think they have 10 guys that they can go to, but Nick Batum hasn't been in the rotation. Who knows if he plays or how many minutes. Joe Chielley just signed his second 10-day contract. I have him in for like 14 minutes, but I think that you get a lot of minutes going to guys like Rozier, Bridges, Cody Martin, and PJ Washington.
All right. So are you willing to set groups here?
Yeah. I mean, I think that among the main guys, I don't really care who is together in a lineup because I don't think that like Bridges is stealing from PJ Washington. Obviously, I wouldn't want Biyombo and Guillermo Hernan-Gomez together. I don't think that I'll get to Jalen McDaniels or Caleb Martin or any of the rest of the, Batum or Chielley anyway. So I don't really think groups are all that necessary here outside of the centers.
Okay. And just to be clear, that's because you don't anticipate yourself getting much of some of those really bottom barrel guys, not because you like them all in the same lineup or
right. Yeah. I mean, if you're getting Caleb Martin in lineups, I wouldn't play him with like Cody Martin. But right. The way that my projections are looking right now, I'm just not going to have any of those guys anyway. Other than Cody Martin.
You want to talk the Spurs here?
Yeah.
All right. So LaMarcus Aldridge is out. Obviously, Jakob Poeltl also down for the count, at least 2 to 4 weeks dealing with the MCL sprain in his knee. So that puts them in the same situation they've been in recently. And DeMar DeRozan continues to carry a pretty decent price point. That isn't to say that he's done a whole lot with it. It also isn't to say that this is a particularly great matchup. And I say that only because of the pace that the Hornets play at. Actually, the Pistons over the last month are playing slower, but still 95.6 possessions per 48 for Charlotte is just ungodly bad. And defensively, they've been, middle of the road, still not great, but they play so slow that this game, like I said earlier, no surprise the total is so low on it. But Aldridge being out does have a pretty significant impact. Let's start with DeRozan and work our way to some of these peripheral guys that are going to be affected specifically by no Aldridge and no Poeltl by playing time, not usage.
Yeah, I mean, I think DeRozan is still pretty clearly underpriced. He's disappointed in his last couple of games. Both were slow matchups against Orlando and Indiana. Now you have another slow matchup against Charlotte, but it's a much less efficient defensive team than either of those. So I think it looks a little bit better for DeRozan. And because of those poor performances, his salary hasn't come up. With DeJounte Murray on the floor and Aldridge off this season, 28.7% usage for DeRozan, 27% assist percentage. Played about 38 minutes last night. I think normally you're going to see 34 or 35 in competitive games. So I think DeRozan still looks like a good option here just because the salary hasn't moved to account for the increased upside without Aldridge. You also have, it's scary with this team projecting the rest of it because obviously Pop can change things up pretty quickly. But yesterday you got Drew Eubanks starting at center. He played about 16 minutes. I have him in for 18 today. You got 36 minutes or 37 minutes from Trey Lyles. He played 40 the game before that. I have him in for 33, just trying to account for the fact that Pop can change things. But Marco Bellinelli is out, which is one body that I thought could potentially kind of screw us over and take minutes away from guys. He's
His
out.
minutes have been all over the map too. It's really
Right.
difficult to gauge how much of an impact it actually has.
Right, exactly. Like he played 6 minutes yesterday, but in the game where a couple games ago where Pirtle came off the bench, I think you got like 20 minutes or something from Bellinelli. So that's one body that's not out there. They do still have bodies on the bench that could come in, but it's at least one rotation guy that is missing. So it makes me feel a little bit better about minutes for guys like Lyles and Rudy Gay. The prices have come up a bit. So Lyles, I think, is the second guy here behind DeMar DeRozan as far as my exposure in my lineups. And then, if you want to roll the dice on someone like DeJounte Murray or a really cheap Patty Mills or something like that, I think it's okay in large field tournaments, but they wouldn't be guys that I'm getting to in like single entry.
Okay, so right now, and we'll get your final take on the Spurs. We'll wrap this game up, but there's a lot to digest on this one. Trey Lyles and DeMar DeRozan are the two Spurs that are projected for, say, top 10 ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you've got nobody from the Spurs in the top 10. And of course, a lot of times we know this pricing has a lot to do with it. Not as much that they're overpriced, but that everyone else is underpriced. So how do you see somebody like Trey Lyles and DeMar DeRozan, assuming this slate locks where they are in the top 10% or top 10 ownership on an 8-game slate?
I think that, especially with DeRozan, I'm fine with that because I'm not really concerned about his minutes, and I do think that he should be producing at a higher level than he has the last couple of games. Lyles is okay too. I mean, I think more often than not, he's a good play here. It's a weak Charlotte front court. He should get a lot of rebounds without Aldridge. He's a productive enough player when he gets the minutes, and he's been getting the minutes without Aldridge and now without Pirtle. I think that there is still risk just because it's Popovich, but those are the two guys that I think look the best from San Antonio as well.
Okay, favorite plays from this game, since we talked about a lot.
Rozier, DeRozan, and then a gap to Lyles, and then a gap to all of these other guys.
Like a Cody Martin and
Cody Martin, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, DeJounte Murray, Rudy Gay. They're all rosterable if you're playing 150 lineups in a large field tournament, but they're not guys that I would be considering in the first lineup I build. Whereas I think all of DeRozan, like right now in the optimal lineup I built on DraftKings before the show, I have all of DeRozan, Lyles, and Rozier.
Can you make an argument for Biyombo or Zeller?
Not for Zeller because he hasn't been in the rotation in a while, and I have no idea if he comes back today or not.
Yeah, I guess he probably won't play. You're right.
But I mean, for Biyombo, sure. Like he probably plays around 26 minutes. He's cheap, but I don't think it's really necessary.
Okay. Want to move on?
Yep.
All right, let's talk about Boston and Brooklyn. This one shouldn't take as long. So the Brooklyn Nets here getting 6 points on the road, 219 total. And I think the big news, really the huge news here is Jason Tatum. So he's been unbelievable lately, been dominant around the basket, and really impossible to stop. Teams have not been able to slow him down, even if they throw everyone at him. It's been a really impressive few weeks, maybe a month for Jason Tatum. So he's out. He's doubtful to play. Kemba Walker is back. First thing we need to do here, obviously, is break down what this team looks like without Jason Tatum and how that's going to affect them, and what type of minutes we're projecting for Kemba Walker today, because he's expected to have a minutes limit. So that it kind of throws a wrench into the works here, knowing that he's back but might be limited. I personally think Kemba Walker still sees close to 30. When he returned last time, he the second game he played like 30 plus, and the only reason he didn't when he returned the first game was because the game got out of control. So I'm not expecting him to be considerably limited tonight, Adam.
Yeah, you said you have him around 30. I have him at 30. Alex has him at 30. Talk to Josh. Josh
Okay,
has
well,
him at
that's
30.
good to know.
Yeah, so we're all on the same page there. They said that he's on a minutes limit, but just kind of trying to think through it logically. Like, not only did he play 30 his first game back the last time that he missed time, but if he's still hurt, they wouldn't play him. And it's more likely that it's just, getting him back into the swing of things. And so I think it's more likely that you're seeing something around 30 minutes than, like, let's say 22 or something like that. So I think that pricing is drastically different on Boston between sites. On FanDuel, they're all really cheap, of course. On DraftKings, the pricing I think is more like correct, even accounting for Tatum being out, because the pricing has come up as a result of Kemba missing games recently. So on DraftKings, I don't see any of them as priorities, but I do think that as lower owned plays in tournaments, you can look at any of Hayward, Brown, Kemba, or Daniel Tice. Smart, I think, is overpriced. I'm not going to get to him. But on FanDuel, I think it's different because you only have it's 6,200 for Jaylen Brown, only 6K for Gordon Hayward. Without Tatum on the floor this year, Hayward has a 24% usage rate. With Kemba on and Tatum off, Jalen's at 25%. Kemba himself has a 32% usage rate. And these guys are all sub 7K on FanDuel. So I think I'll be getting to a lot of Celtics there, but on DraftKings, I won't be getting to as much.
Okay. Yeah, Kemba Walker almost 1.3 DraftKings points per minute this year, almost 500 minutes with Tatum off the court. I think obviously it comes down to where his price is and whether or not it's worth it. You talk about this being a site specific thing here. Is $7,300 on DraftKings too much if you're projecting 30 minutes?
I think it's pretty difficult because, not only does he have to produce in those 30 minutes to be worth the price tag, but the biggest issue that you run into whenever you're expecting someone to be limited or to be playing limited minutes is that the like right tail of their distribution is kind of cut off, because if he does play 30 minutes, there's really only so much he can do. Even if he's producing at an above average rate, it's just tough to get that, really, really huge game out of him. Whereas there are a lot of players in that price range that you can expect to play 34 to 36 minutes.
Let's talk about the Nets. Karis LeVert's been very good since Kyrie Irving went down in early February, taking a bit of a step back. Against Atlanta, that was surprising. They got cooked. Against Miami, I can't say I was shocked. It's a solid defensive team. They've been excellent at home. Spencer Dinwiddie has definitely had taken, I should say, not a backseat role, but a secondary role to Karis LeVert. And then the last couple of games, he stepped it up. But also keep in mind, a lot of that's just big efficiency and getting to the charity stripe a lot. So it's hard to say really which one of these guys is going to shoulder the heavier load from night to night, especially given what we've seen out of Dinwiddie in the last 2 days. Is there really any reason to have enthusiasm towards Brooklyn against a good Boston defense? I get that Tatum's out, but you still have Brown, you still have Smart. It's still a very good backcourt and wing defensive team, one of the best in the league.
I think that the upside is appealing in tournaments. I don't think that guys like Dinwiddie or LeVert are particularly high probability plays, because it is a tough matchup against Boston. But like, for example, on DraftKings right now, LeVert's projected for 4% ownership. Dinwiddie's at 7%. And in the games that they've both played without Kyrie this year, 31.6% usage and a 26% assist percentage for LeVert, 27.2% usage rate, 39% assist percentage for Dinwiddie. The opportunities are certainly there, and both guys should play around 34 minutes. So they're, I think, good pieces to use as contrarian plays in tournaments. But if you're just looking for, the optimal play in that price range, I don't think it's either guy. Beyond them, though, I don't really get to anything from Brooklyn, because there's enough center options today that I don't feel the need to really roll the dice with Allen or Jordan. And it's not the type of matchup where I'm really looking to, kind of catch lightning in a bottle with someone like Joe Harris or Taurean Prince.
Yeah, Jared Allen, if he gets into that $4,500 range, you're probably having a different conversation. But at this point, you're hoping for 26, 28 minutes, which is what you're probably going to get. The 1 18-minute game, he fouled out. So that was an outlier. But I don't see the need to get there either. Do you have anything else from either side?
I do not.
OKC and the LA Clippers. Let's keep this one rolling. So the Clippers on the road are 5-point favorites. 227.5 total on this game is pretty high. And we'll kick it off with OKC. So one of the few teams so far or on the day that we're going to talk about that doesn't have any significant injuries. But against the Clippers, who oddly have given up some huge games to opponents lately. Not something that I can expect to continue. 130 points to the Sixers was very surprising, but that's also one of the biggest outlier games you're ever going to get from a guy like Shake Milton. It's a good Clippers defense. A good team when they're healthy. Paul George, having him in there defensively, even when he struggles with the ball in his hands, is such a boon to their success. So what are you doing with OKC?
I think that I view them kind of similarly to how I was talking about Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that they project as reasonable options at their pricing or at their price points, but they're not going to get into optimal lineups, which means that they're good contrarian pieces in tournaments because so many people use median projections and don't really account for range of outcomes. Guys like Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should play big minutes in this game. It should be a competitive game. And while it's not a good matchup, that there's basically five and a half guys from OKC that are going to produce, and Paul Gilgeous-Alexander are two of them. Over the last couple of months in games where Paul and Gallinari have both played, 24% usage rate for Paul, 21.1% for Alexander, but the peripherals have been up for him, and then Gallinari's at 25.7%. Gallinari is the only guy here that's really getting any sort of ownership. And I understand why he's getting ownership, because in the lineup I crunched before the show, he was in it because there's not a ton of great forward plays today. And he's at a favorable price point if you're expecting around 32 minutes. But you and I have talked about it a lot, that the range of outcomes just isn't really that wide on Gallinari, which
Right.
is nice for cash games because the floor is high. But for tournaments, especially if he's getting ownership, it's not someone that you're really that scared of being below the field on. So I would expect that I'm not coming in over the field on Gallinari.
Gallinari usually will never be the reason that you don't cash, but he's also not going to be the reason you win tournaments.
Right.
Um, Here's the one enticing aspect of this game. I would be surprised if it's not a very close competitive game, which I mentioned to you or Josh yesterday. Like, somebody still has to score. So even if it's a good Clippers defense, someone still has to put the work in, and they have a number of players capable of doing that. Unfortunately, I don't think I can prioritize any of them. Let me just ask you about one more player. He's definitely come back down to earth a little bit, but outside of last game where they were defeated in embarrassing fashion in Milwaukee, he's been playing around 30 minutes with upside for more when he's playing well. $5,700 Dennis Schroeder on DraftKings. So he's going to get some of those bench minutes against a less daunting or in a less daunting task than when he's facing the starting lineup for the Clippers. He'll see some of them, sure, but he's $5,300 on FanDuel. He's $5,700 on DraftKings in what is a pace up spot for the OKC Thunder. Is he appealing to you at all at that price point?
Somewhat, but there's a couple things that make me think that I'm not really going to get to a whole lot of him. For one, the usage has been down a bit as Chris Paul, at the beginning of the season, Chris Paul's usage rate was lower than it has been recently. And you're seeing Schroeder be one of the guys who's losing a little bit of usage. But on top of that, you also have a couple of guys priced around him that I just like a little bit more.
I think that's the big thing for tonight.
One obviously being Terry Rozier, but we haven't gotten to the Sacramento game. Buddy Hield's only 5,500 on DraftKings, so he's 200 less than Schroeder. Right now, we have them projected for the same ownership, and I have Hield as a little bit better option. So there's just a couple of guys in this price range that make it tough for me to get to Schroeder.
Yeah, those are all fair points. The usage, I'm not terribly concerned about. There's ebbs and flows throughout a long season, but the fact that so many players are priced close to him makes it a little bit more difficult for sure. Do you want to touch on anything else from the Thunder?
So just to your point, and I guess to kind of reemphasize why I'm not as high on OKC as I would be a lot of teams in this situation, because I do agree with you that this should be a competitive game. It has playoff implications. You probably get big minutes out of these guys. It's just that the production is distributed so evenly amongst, basically four scorers in Paul,
Yeah,
Gilgeous-Alexander, Gallinari, and Schroeder, and then Adams is there getting rebounds. That it's really, really difficult. It's not one of those teams like you can point to like Atlanta, where it's like they're going to score a lot of points and it has to come from John Collins and Trae Young. It's relatively likely that at the prices you have on OKC, these guys all can give you a pretty good game, but nothing that you need to have.
absolutely. All right. Let's take a look at the Clippers then. You want to talk about an even distribution of scoring. Obviously Kawhi Leonard is your top dog here, right? He's the guy that's going to get I won't even say the lion's share of opportunity, but each night you'd expect him to be the highest usage player on this team. But still, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Paul George, who is still working his way back from that injury, hasn't looked great offensively, but is still going to get up around 15 shots a night. Lou Williams off the bench is going to give you in close game anywhere from 25 to 28 minutes. And is someone that is a playmaker that will bring the ball up the court. I can go on. Even Montrezl Harrell, they've made an effort to get him the ball down low, particularly against smaller front courts. There's just so many different ways the Clippers can put up 130 points without one single player blowing the lid off the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the easier teams to kind of ignore for DFS, and obviously it's not because they're not good, but not only do you have usage and stats spread out amongst these guys, but minutes too. There's just so many good NBA players on this team that have to get some sort of reasonable minutes. I have Kawhi in for 34. I have George at 30. I don't have another player at above 28 minutes on this team. So not only are they getting less usage than they were earlier this year when they were dealing with injuries, but you're also getting less playing time. So, in 150 lineups, I could see getting to a little bit of Kawhi or George because their pricing has started to come down. But it's just really difficult for me to get to anything else because Harrell and Lou Williams lose production when both George and Kawhi are healthy. Marcus Morris obviously isn't going to produce at the same rates that he was with the Knicks now that he's playing with all of these other guys. Patrick Beverley's losing some playing time to Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson obviously isn't going to produce like he was in Detroit. It's just when this team's fully healthy, it's really, really difficult to get to any of them in
Yep.
DFS.
I mean, it's a terrifying basketball team, but for fantasy purposes, it's equally terrifying because you don't know what's going to happen. I just don't have any interest here. If there's anything else you want to hit on, go for it. But I think it's a fun game to watch. OKC, as you pointed out, might have some solid secondary options, but it's a tall order getting to someone on the Clippers that you feel good about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess like even Pat Beverley hasn't been playing big minutes since coming back. Like
I know.
you could make the argument that maybe he gets a little bit more run for defensive reasons against all the guards on OKC, and he's only 3,700 on DraftKings, but that's still certainly not a play you're going to feel very confident comes through a lot.
No, and one of the reasons is now you bring in Reggie Jackson, who's just another body that you can run for decent enough minutes if necessary.
Right.
I also don't love that Beverly is clearly a player who you need to get some steals and a few peripherals from him because scoring isn't his forte. Man, his shot volume since returning from injury is unreal. His usage rate must be around 8%. Must be.
I mean, and well, for the entire season with George and Kawhi in games that they both play, it's only 12.5%.
Right. Exactly. I'm curious. I'm pulling it up now just to see what it is. Since what's up?
Here's the game by game: 11.1, 11.4, 2.1, 7.7.
I know. Okay. It's I nailed it. 8.0. Look at that.
Nice call.
But yeah, that's a bit concerning in its own right if he's only getting 24 minutes. So 3,700 in tournaments, not the craziest idea, but it's also a relatively easy spot to pass on. Keep it moving here to New Orleans, Minnesota.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Hopefully more fun than last night's game that you couldn't fade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what was that, a 30, 40-point blowout in
Yeah, it
Atlanta?
was. Yeah, and the crazy thing was it was a 40-point blowout, but the team that like Memphis blew out Atlanta, and even the good Memphis players didn't do anything.
I know. I know. I know. It's just so bad. Joval was off. So there was so crazy. At one point, the Memphis Grizzlies had 2 points. 2 points, 5 minutes into the 4 minutes into the game. And Valanciunas had those 2 points, but he also had 8 rebounds, which was just very strange for a team. It makes sense. These guys are missing left and right. But by the
There's your
way,
Cody Zeller call.
thanks. I had a feeling he would get some time. So Cody Zeller is starting ahead of Biyombo. Cody Martin starting for Devontae Graham. It's really hard with Borrego because he does this shit with the centers so often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though? Like, Biyombo might play 29 minutes one day. Zeller doesn't play. Zeller is starting tonight, might play 27, but it feels like a stay away spot. So.
I mean, I think Zeller's worth a look now. I mean, he's 3,900 on DraftKings, and he has power forward eligibility.
Does he have power forward eligibility now?
Yep. So against Indiana, which was actually the last game that Devontae Graham missed, Cody Zeller got the start. Biyombo played 12 minutes. Zeller played 24. And I'm going to go ahead and guess that Hernan Gomez played 12. 9.
Close enough.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, he's cheap. And if we're being fair, he is a +1 per minute guy on the year.
Yeah, I mean, he can produce. It's just a matter of minutes, but he's cheap enough. And I really think that having power forward eligibility is a big deal.
Yeah. And I don't really know how. Yeah, it is a huge deal, by the way. I don't really know if you're seeing like a usage bump with Graham off the court for Zeller. If you have that pulled up, I just pulled it up now, but I doubt it makes a huge difference here. 19% usage, 1.07 fantasy points per minute with those guys off the floor. So that's worthwhile if you can get the minutes from him. I'm going to give him right now. I haven't looked deep into it because we're on the show, but I think 24 minutes feels appropriate.
That's what I did as well.
All right. New Orleans, Minnesota, 247 total. I think I'm taking the under here, Adam. 117.5.8 implied for Minnesota. 129.3 for the Pels. They're laying 11.5 points at home. All right, let's just dig into this because there's so many different angles we have to approach it from. Zion Williamson on DraftKings, 28.9% right now. That's the ownership we haven't projected for. Highest on the slate at 7,700. At 8,200 on FanDuel, he's still in the top 10, but he's down at 21.9%. What do you have on? What are you doing with Zion today against this just dreadful Minnesota team that's running out an undersized front court every single day?
I'll be rostering him.
Well,
he's
sure,
been, I mean, like, so if you wanted a negative on Zion, it would be that I expect him to play fewer minutes than every other starter, except for Derek Favors. But he's obviously really, really productive. He has the highest usage rate since coming back from his injury. In games that Ingram has played this year, his usage is still Zion's usage is still 29.8%. It's a good matchup. You could see him closing at the 5 over Favors against this team as well. Not that I think that makes a huge difference, but it wouldn't hurt. So I think Zion, obviously looks really good, and he's the first of many for this team.
All right, first of many. Before we even get into the other guys, let me ask you this. Is Zion your top option from the Pels?
Second.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, maybe you pointed this out and I missed it, but Serge Ibaka and Van Vliet are both now doubtful. So if you're building lineups while following along on the show, that's some important news that is worth relaying to you. But I'm sure that in chat, you have 100 people that have already put that in. I found it funny, by the way. When people were like spamming the chat with that injury news the other day, someone's like, we all follow the same account for this. Like everyone's looking in the same spot, but maybe some people aren't. I don't know.
Greg Popovich also not coaching tonight, so we get to see, I guess, how Tim Duncan runs rotations.
Okay. All right. Well, that should be fun. That's worth watching just for that. But then I see who they're playing, and I'm probably going to pass.
I mean, you obviously have no idea what to do with that information other than we can't blame Pop when the Spurs stuff goes poorly.
I can't imagine he has full reign to just shake it up however he
No, no. I
wants.
mean, I'm not expecting any insane change. It's
40
more
minutes from
he
Lonnie Walker.
probably has a better temperament than Pop and is less likely to after 4 minutes just hockey line change.
Yeah, that's a good point. Who knows? It will be fun to watch. So let's see. Is there a reason Pop isn't coaching? Not that it matters.
Says personal issue.
Okay. So outside of Zion, who are we getting to? I'll lead you with this. On DraftKings right now, the New Orleans Pelicans have two guys in the top 10, and then you've got like 4 or 5 in the top 20
Yeah,
on
so sorry,
ownership.
I was reading another news.
I'm saying on DraftKings right now, you've got two New Orleans Pelicans players projected for top 10 ownership, and then you've got about 4 or 5 of them within the top 20 or so.
Yeah, and I think it's deserved for a couple of reasons. For one, it's a good matchup. It's a fast-paced Minnesota team. It's a Minnesota team that doesn't play much defense, but you're also getting tons of minutes for the New Orleans guys. So that's a big thing as well. I mentioned expecting around 33 minutes for Zion, but for the rest of these guys, they're all coming off at least 37 or 38-minute games, and you still have injuries with this team as well, with JJ Redick out. So I think that you get another, assuming this game's competitive, another 37 or around 37 minutes for guys like Ingram, Drew, and Lonzo. They're all affordable. They're all priced on DraftKings in the same ballpark as the Celtics guys, which is one reason why I think it's really, really difficult to get to players in that price range that aren't on the Pels. So Ingram's my number one guy from the Pels because of the minutes difference between him and Zion. I think that the ceilings are comparable, but the median projection for Ingram's just a little bit higher. He's got a 27.5% usage rate in the games he's played with Zion this year. And, I'm expecting huge minutes from him. So I think he looks really good. I think Drew and Lonzo both look like good options just based on how many minutes I expect them to play. I would put them behind Ingram and Zion, but ahead of other players at their price point.
All right. So you put them ahead of other players at their price point. If you, I don't know if you've crunched lineups yet, but
I haven't.
You have or haven't?
Have not.
Do you think the Pelicans will be your highest exposed team?
Without question.
Without question. So it's no doubt about it.
Yep.
What about Minnesota?
Not as appealing from a DFS standpoint and it's for the reason that I mentioned with the Pels, where you're expecting really concentrated minutes for them. That's not really the case for Minnesota. There's only 2 guys on the Timberwolves that I have projected above 30 minutes today, and it's D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. So they both look good, but Russell, for example, is $9K on DraftKings, which is a perfectly fine price, but it makes him more expensive than every single player on the Pelicans. It makes him more expensive, by a lot than guys like Rozier and DeMar DeRozan. He's $500 more than DeRozan on FanDuel as well. Beasley's at $6K, which is okay, but I think, still I'd prefer going to someone like Rozier. On FanDuel, Beasley's a little bit more appealing because he's only $5,500 there. So it's going to be really easy to get to him. But beyond those guys, I don't expect a ton of minutes from anyone on Minnesota, and pricing has started to come up on some guys like Naz Reid and Juancho Hernangomez. So I'm not nearly as interested in the Minnesota side as I am in the Pels side.
The other day, and not just the other day, but recently, since he's debuted, Zion Williamson has just beat the piss out of opponents in the paint and around the basket. I mean, I watched Hassan Whiteside look lost trying to defend him around the rim. I watched Kyle Kuzma almost die from getting dunked on. This is a very strange situation. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know how long he goes before his body gives out on him, or if he's really going to contribute heavily to them winning down the road. But I do know this, that you can't stop him around the basket. And it's just making for such ridiculous high percentage shooting, Adam. I did want to go back and just tackle this on Zion because he is going to be the most popular player. So
yeah, he's been a nightmare because the players who are strong enough to defend him aren't quick enough to stay in front of him. And the players who are quick enough, he's just going right through them. So it's been a matchup nightmare, and I'm very interested to see how quickly Naz Reid fouls out of this game.
All right. It's going to be fast. Last I looked, he was averaging like 7 personal fouls per 36 or something insane.
For a second, when I was like, because obviously I don't factor foul, like, I mean, I factor foul trouble into the projection as far as I have Naz Reid at 27 minutes instead of 32, but I don't factor it in as far as like I think he fouls out of this game earlier. But when I was first looking at it, I was like, oh well, Derek Favors not really a high usage guy. Maybe Reid actually manages not to foul, and then I realized it was just going to be Zion taking it to him, and it was going to be a short night probably.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal. 6.5 personal fouls per 36, by the way. Just insane.
Yeah, not great.
Round this game out and we'll move on.
So I mean that's really all that I have from the Minnesota side with Russell and Beasley. To kind of just finish up the Pel side, obviously the 4 main guys that you're expecting big minutes from are all really good plays, but also as secondary options, you can look to a Derek Favors or a Josh Hart. Not guys that I wouldn't really want them together, at least all that often, but I don't think that either one projects high enough that I'd get a lot of them in the same lineup anyway. But there's certainly a chance that Hart closes over Favors in this one and picks up a couple of extra minutes. And Favors should be very productive in the minutes he is on the floor.
Jason Tatum officially out. Let's keep it going. 4 up, 4 down. A few of these, not as much time needs to be spent. Deeper Dive is the name of this show, the best nighttime DFS show in the industry, but also a way for you to get 50% off your first week at Awesemo.com. That's 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum all access subscription by using that sign up code Deeper Dive at checkout. All one word, Deeper Dive. You go to Awesemo.com/join and check out all of the plans we have to offer. You could either do this, get that week, get 50% off, or you can check out everything else that we have. A ton of packages really catered to anybody who's looking to play, whether you're a hobbyist, whether you're serious, a professional. We've got something for everyone. We even have a quick 1-question survey on what type of player you are, so we can fine tune or cater that subscription to your needs and to what you like. Another thing, if you scroll down on that page, again, awesemo.com/join, there's a see how Awesemo works page. And you've got videos, essentially tutorials and descriptive videos on how to use our ownership projections, our player projections, the lineup builder, the top stacks tool, our premium Slack chat, and so much more, all of which are involved or included in this package. Fantasy Cruncher add-on is separate, but if you're someone that plays several lineups a night, it's definitely worth looking into. And if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter or anywhere else that you can ask questions. That's Deeper Dive, one word. Get 50% off your first month. And yeah, if you have questions, you follow me on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, and Adam at Ship My Money DFS. All right, Denver and Golden State. This will likely be a bloodbath. It seems really difficult to get around that. They're 16-point favorites. The Golden State Warriors are an atrocious basketball team, and I would expect that to continue tonight. No Draymond Green, no Kevon Looney either, for whatever that's worth. Let's just dive right into this one. 218 total, biggest spread of the night. Is Denver a team that you're attacking?
Yeah, because I think that they should obviously score a lot of points here. I don't expect this game to be competitive, but there are a couple of plays that I think look pretty good. For one, you have Nikola Jokic, who is only 9,400 on DraftKings. He should do whatever he wants against this Golden State team. 10-3 on FanDuel is a little bit tougher to get to. Jamal Murray also looks like a good option at 6,900 on FanDuel and 6,700 on DraftKings. It's Alex and I had talked about it the other day, and Josh and I talked about it this morning. Typically, and obviously Memphis was an exception last night, but typically in games where there's a blowout, the team that is blowing the other team out, you're not too concerned about their guys losing minutes because they were normally going to be more productive during the minutes on the floor. So I'm not too worried about that for guys like Jokic and Murray. Paul Millsap's questionable here. I'd be surprised if he plays in a game where he's completely not needed. So that makes Jeremy Grant at 4,400 on FanDuel, I think, an interesting play as well. Other than that, if you in large field tournaments want to roll the dice on like a $3,700 Mason Plumlee or a $4,300 Michael Porter Jr. and just hope that they get a little bit of blowout run to put them over the top, I think that's fine. Obviously set rules so that you don't have Porter with like Will Barton and you don't have Plumlee with Jokic.
All right. So The big question here, do you have any like legitimate priorities from Denver?
I wouldn't say that anyone from Denver is in like my top, 5 or 6 highest owned guys.
Okay. Do you want to talk about anything else from the Nuggets?
Will Barton's pretty cheap on DraftKings too at 5,600.
All right. Let's look at Golden State if you want. I mean, there's not a whole lot to really discuss here. Kai Bowman's out, Green's out, Kevon Looney's out. Curry hasn't made his long-awaited return yet. Denver's good both in their starting five and their bench. Defensively, they've taken a bit of a step back from last season, but they're still above average. They're the second best team in the West. What can you do here with the Warriors?
Nothing.
I think that's the right answer. Yeah.
It's worth. They signed Chase and Randall today, so that is one more body they have. The only appeal from Golden State is that they're short on bodies, and these guys should play big minutes. Some of them had favorable pricing, like Dragan Bender at 3,700, Juan Toscano-Anderson at 3,700. But it's still a brutal matchup against Denver. They still have enough bodies where, especially assuming Randall's available, that they don't have to play like 40 minutes or anything. I think it's more likely that they all play 28 to 30 with a little bit more going to guys like Wiggins and Damian Lee. Tough matchup. Should be a low-scoring game. Plenty of other options to get to on this slate. I'm just not getting the Golden State.
All right. Well, that's good because we've got a lot to talk about with far more enticing games, and we're going to do that right now. We did have a question in premium Slack chat. He said, if Naz Reid gets into foul trouble, who is going to pick up those minutes?
James Johnson.
Yeah, James Johnson. That's why when James Johnson started before Naz Reid was getting the backup minutes, those two, or one of them will be on the court at all times, or at least that's the way that it's been since Karl Anthony Towns went down. They are sharing the center minutes exclusively between the two. All right. Phoenix and Toronto.
Whoa.
What's up?
20 to 25 minutes for Kemba.
Really? That's crazy. I know you remember when he came back last time and it seemed like there were no issues at all. And I thought he was out longer than this time. That's
just seems weird. Like, why is he playing? Why not just like have him go through a full practice and then.
Right. 20 to 25 seems crazy.
Yeah. So I'll give him 26.
Yeah. Right. I mean, does that make it worth revisiting anything with Smart? Or I think Smart's still too expensive.
Right. Yeah. I don't think we really need to go back to it because you're talking about, a few minutes. It makes Kemba less appealing, but I don't think it's enough to make the other guys look much better. And they already looked really good on FanDuel.
I agree. And Live Before Locks coming up next. They'll tackle a lot of that late breaking news for sure. You've got Eddie and you've got EMAC taking you up till 7 p.m. Eastern. So Phoenix at home, 4.5 point dogs against the Toronto Raptors. And Phoenix just comes out. They blow out Utah in their own house. And then they lose to Detroit, squander a sizable lead there. And they get blown out by the Warriors at home the very next day. This has been a strange team, especially from like a betting perspective. But it has affected them from a DFS angle as well. Booker's been very volatile and his price has been up and down as well. The reason I bring all of this up, normally I'd kind of just gloss over it, but with Van Vliet, but most importantly with Serge Ibaka doubtful to play, Toronto will still have a solid defense, but it won't be nearly as formidable as it was when you had a rotation with Gasol and Ibaka both in it. That's a pretty big hit to their interior defense for sure. How does it affect guys like DeAndre Ayton for you?
Yeah, I think that Ayton and Booker both look like pretty good options. It is a quality Toronto team, but they're not they shouldn't be as good defensively with the guys that they're missing. And you're getting big minutes from Booker and from Ayton in the 5 games that you have with Oubre out and Rubio in the lineup. Ayton has a 27.9% usage rate. Booker's at 30.6%. So given the minutes that you expect them to play, and then Ayton also now on DraftKings has power forward eligibility, they both look like good plays. I have them projected both right around 45 points. So I think that they both look good. I think Rubio looks like another just kind of secondary option in that 7K price range where he's very clearly behind the Pelicans players, but he should have low ownership and it's a reasonable pivot in some individual lineups.
So we'll get to Toronto in just a second. There's a decent amount to talk about there. Do you carry any interest on the Spurs or for the Suns into this slate?
Booker and Ayton primarily.
Okay, but none of these guys that are jumping off the page at you.
No, I mean Booker and Ayton I think look good.
Okay. Yeah, I like Ayton quite a bit here. I think it's a very favorable spot for him, for sure. Especially given that your front court is going to be Siakam and Hollis Jefferson, both of whom are good players, but neither of whom are big, big, physical players, which I think could definitely come into play for Ayton. So has there been anyone on the season that has lost people more money than Chris Boucher?
Probably not, and it goes in both directions. Like there's
Yes,
been
that he
games where I
blows
thought
up when
Boucher
you
was a
don't.
bad play and he smashes in overtime
Exactly. So
or in garbage time. I mean,
so Serge Ibaka has been out for 2 games. This will make his 3rd in a row. If he ends up being out, he's doubtful. And here you have it again, Adam. Chris Boucher in those games plays 16 and then 9 minutes. He didn't even get in that last one against Denver where they got run off the court. He still played 9 minutes. So wanted to throw that out there. We always get the questions about him, even when it doesn't look like he's going to play. Let's start with the front court here and work our way down.
Yeah, I mean, it's always scary. I hate when you have to deal with it because he's a really good per minute guy. So
great.
Right. So and he's essentially the minimum price. So if for whatever reason he plays more minutes than you're expecting, you're in a bad spot if you don't have him. But all you can really go off of is the way they've been using him lately. Like you said, the minutes haven't been there. Hollis Jefferson's been starting, but in the last game they played, which was against Denver, where you had, Jokic and Plumlee, Pascal Siakam was playing minutes over Boucher as well, and that's when he only played 9 minutes. So I'm expecting them to do the same thing here. I gave Boucher 12, I gave Hollis Jefferson 26, and then the rest of those minutes going to Siakam. So if this is the game where Boucher finally blows up, I will be moving on to tomorrow's slate. But
Yeah, pretty much. But
there's just nothing about the way they've used him recently that makes me think it changes here.
And Nick Nurse usually doesn't conform to matchups in terms of trying to get up against another player when a bigger or smaller team. Like he plays his guys and he runs them for as many minutes as he wants.
And I think also that if he were to decide to try and match up more with DeAndre Ayton, it would be with Siakam anyway.
Exactly. Boucher 0.1% projected ownership, though. I can't help but think this probably is the game that nobody plays him and he has 40 fantasy points.
Right.
Wouldn't be shocking, especially against the Suns. What about with Van Vliet out? Norman Powell has been back now. OG Anunoby has seemingly taken his game to the next level, at least in the past couple of starts. 40 minutes in both. Can you get to anybody here outside of the front court?
Not so much on DraftKings. Like I think $5,700 Norm Powell is still fine, but not a priority. I think the Siakam looks fine and Lowry looks okay. But on FanDuel, the pricing is a lot better. I'm kind of glad that we got that news when we did because I was talking to Josh earlier and I thought it was going to be really, really difficult to figure out what exactly to do on FanDuel because the pricing is a lot better. Like you have Rondae Hollis Jefferson is only 3,800 at power forward. If you give him 26 minutes, he looks like a pretty good value. Norm Powell's 4,900. OG is probably playing 36 minutes at 5,700. So all those guys look a lot better on FanDuel than they do on DraftKings.
2 more to go. Hey, if you haven't hit that thumbs up button yet, simplest way to help support us here is by hitting that thumbs up and liking the video. It does a ton for us, and we greatly appreciate all of that. And of course, you guys making the deeper dive a part of your nightly process. Sacramento and Washington. Let's get into this one. We got a little short on time, but that's what happens here. 235.5 total. Kings with a 120.5 total. That's one of the highest on the slate, second to only the Pels. They're 5.5 point favorites. I'm going to kick this over to you. What do we got with the Sacramento Kings against a bad defensive, fast-paced Washington squad?
Another team where I expect them to score a lot of points, but that it's going to be distributed, relatively evenly amongst their players. There are a couple guys that stand out though. De'Aaron Fox, I think, is in a good spot. It's a little tough to get to him at 8K over, obviously you have all the Pelicans guys that are cheaper. 7,500 looks a little better on FanDuel. Buddy Hield at 5,500 on both sites, I think is interesting because since he went to the bench, he's still averaged 27 minutes per game. I have him in for 26 here, but he's got about a 28% usage rate. It's a really, really good matchup against Washington. He's produced at about 1.2 DraftKings points per minute since going to the bench as well. So I think that maybe he goes a little bit overlooked. Mentioned earlier that he's only projected for like 10% ownership on DraftKings. I think his price tag is just lower than it should be. And then one other guy that you could look to if you're just looking to get a volatile, high upside guy, Alex Len, 21 minutes 2 games ago, 27 minutes last game. Harry Giles was in some foul trouble in both of those games, and the Kings starters basically got hockey line benched 5 minutes into their last game. So that helped to bump Len's minutes. But I think it's a big takeaway that he's no longer limited, clearly, after coming back from his injury after the trade. So there's at least the potential for him to play more. I think that it's pretty likely you get something like a 24-24 or 25-23 split between him and Giles, and it is obviously a good matchup for him.
Are you interested in the Washington side?
Not really.
Because Beal's price point, woo, he's getting up there, man. He's playing great, but he's getting up there.
I think he deserves the price point.
Sure.
I think that when you just look at him, I don't think he's really overpriced. Like I still think there's a little value there because of how many minutes he plays and the fact that he's been driving to the basket a lot more. The usage rate's up around 38% since he came back from his injury. But the problem you run into is there's just so many really good high upside guards at like 7 to 8K that they're not all going to bust, you wouldn't think. And so you're kind of, it's really thin, like trying to get, you need Beal for one to have one of those 60-point games at his price tag. And then you also need none of these 7K guys to go for like 54 and make him useless.
So is that it for Washington for you?
Pretty much. I mean, Thomas Bryant's 3,800. He started last game, still only played like 15 or 16 minutes. Washington center rotation's a nightmare. Rui is pretty cheap, but not really all that necessary on the slate. So there's nothing that really looks that good.
And Bradley Beal's highest projected owned at 7.8%. And then you have to come all the way down to 3.8% on DraftKings for the next player. So that goes to show you where the sentiment is on Washington tonight. Ready to close this out?
Yep.
Oh, and hey, if you haven't done it yet, if you give a rating and review on our podcast and leave your username, you're automatically entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So why not? Appreciate those reviews, particularly the nice ones. They make us feel great inside, and we appreciate you for that all the time. Lakers, Philly. What are you doing with the Lakers? Number one, they're big favorites, double-digit favorites against a massively shorthanded Sixers team without Richardson, Simmons, and Joel Embiid.
Not a whole lot since Davis is probable. It takes value away from the guys like Kyle Kuzma and Howard and JaVale McGee. Davis himself, I think, looks okay at 9,900 on DraftKings, especially because the forward positions aren't quite as strong. On FanDuel, you have 10-5 for LeBron and 10-2 for Davis. They both look like good plays there. But beyond them, I'm not getting to anything just because now you have a million guys that basically all play the same position and are low usage guys because of Davis and James taking so many shots.
The Philadelphia 76ers, like I said, massively shorthanded here. Shake Milton coming off a really, really impressive game. I mean, 26 points in the first half. He just looked legitimately good. Is that something that will hold up? I don't know. But he was their go-to guy in this spot, him and Tobias Harris. Can we get to anyone from the Sixers? Milton's price point, by the way, just seems outrageous. But can we get to Philly today? We'll close it out with this.
Not with a lot of confidence, but I will be taking some shots on like a $4,400 Alec Burks. You have no Richardson, no Embiid, no Simmons.
Yeah, they're just crushed by injuries.
I don't expect much efficiency out of Philadelphia, but there are clearly going to be opportunities. So going to the cheaper guys like Burks, maybe a little bit of Korkmaz. And, on FanDuel as a team, they're a little bit more favorably priced than on DraftKings as well. But it's pretty scary. I mean, you're talking about a Philly team that should have trouble against this Lakers team.
I can't get to Tobias Harris at his current price point.
I can't on DraftKings. I think at 7,300 at small forward on FanDuel.
A lot different. Yeah. And small forward for sure. But 8K plus is a difficult one. I actually like your point on Burks and Korkmaz. One of these guys heats up. Burks ends up playing 25 minutes. 30 minutes. That's certainly not out of the question at all. And look, Shake Milton, Adam, we'll end with this here. We'll turn it over to Eddie and EMAC. They'll take you up till 7. Just your overall thoughts on Milton at $6,300 on DraftKings. 57 on FanDuel. I asked this because I've actually had several questions about him today.
I think he plays huge minutes. I just there's no way he shoots the way he has been. Like it's impossible for him to keep.
He tied the record for most consecutive made threes ever.
Right. Like no matter how good you think this guy is,
he's not that good.
He's not that good.
Right.
So the price tag coming up, on DraftKings, he's up to 6,300, where there's just he's too close in salary to like the Pelicans guys. He's more expensive than Rozier. FanDuel, he's a little bit less expensive, but he's still the same price as Rozier. Still have him on FanDuel behind like 8 or 9 other point guards. So it's pretty tough for me to get to Milton.
Hey, good luck tonight, everyone. It's been fun as always hanging out for this hour, but another hour's coming up right now. Eddie Fear, EMAC taking you till 7, live before lock. Up next. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
SuperDraft.
SuperDraft.
Here we are. This is the inaugural time, I believe, that Chris Randone and I have done a live before lock.
Is it? I feel like we've done one before, like for baseball. I'm not sure though.
And we could. We do enough for the podcast, so but we'll see. But yes, Eddie had some work stuff, so Chris is stepping in graciously here, and we have an intriguing slate. We've got moving parts where we know what most everything is done, and we are going an extra half hour here on SuperDraft. So we'll talk about them in just a moment. But hitting the news that everybody is waiting for, we do not yet know for sure what is going on with Anthony Davis, though he did get an upgrade to probable. We are pretty sure that Serge Ibaka and Fred VanVleet will be out. They have been downgraded to doubtful. They've missed a couple games, and this one is in Phoenix, so it's a little bit later. But you'll want to keep an eye on that. And then Paul Millsap only slightly is the other guy. The reason I'm not as worried about him is I don't think he's going to play just because Denver's not going to need him. They're favored by, 16 right now. So I don't think they're going to need him, but that kind of improves Jeremy Grant. And then I don't know what's going on with Bismack Biyombo here, but he had been starting. He had moved ahead of Cody Zeller, but it's now Cody Zeller starting along with Cody Martin. Bismack I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if this was disciplinary. I don't know what it was. So maybe we'll find out a little bit more on that. But reminder, there was SuperDraft. So they're going to lock at 7:30. Key thing is for them is that you may have a little room in the contest, and there are no salary caps there, which is very nice. So what you can do is you use their multipliers. Now, we do have projections here at Awesemo. They are not free today. They've been free a few times, but if you sign up using the promo code Live Before Lock, all one word, you can get a 1-week package at 50% off. Any 1-week package, in fact. But they have 3 guards, 3 forwards, and a center, and everything is done by the multiplier. So someone like, say, Anthony Davis has like a 1.05 or a 1.0 multiplier. Someone like Shake Milton has like a 1.8 or 9 multiplier. So it's all based upon player skill, and what they try to do is, and performance, they try to get their average similarly with the multiplier in that 50 to 55 fantasy point range. And then we've got to be smart about what's changed in the situations. Is someone on a hot streak? Are they in the different role in the rotation, et cetera? And that can help us out. So that's kind of how that works there. All right, Chris, do you have any sort of top plays here at the top? Anything that highlighted, jumped out for you? We'll talk separately. We'll talk about the New Orleans game because that's what everybody wants to hear about. But any cheapies or anything like that has popped for you today?
I think the first thing that everyone is I'm sure seeing is Terry Rozier. I mean, he's just priced way too cheap on FanDuel at 5,700. And then, I mean, he's pretty price cheap too on 6,100 considering the circumstances. Believe it or not, even though it's a pace down spot, it's kind of a good matchup for him. Defensively, point guard position, Spurs have struggled, especially with that second unit. And that's what intrigues me because the way that usually the rotation is ran is he would come off, with a couple minutes left in the first, then come back on in the second to start. And as you saw, like Brogdon last night, took huge advantage of that, had a huge second quarter and a huge fourth quarter opening up against the second unit. So that's a big spot for Rozier. He's got a little over, I think, a 25% usage rate without Graham and over 31% assist rate. It's kind of hard to just not want to lock him in, especially for multi-entering. He just opens up so much. And his projected price point is, I mean, in comparison almost to like a Kyle Lowry, De'Aaron Fox. So Terry Rozier for me, I mean, by far, he's chalk, but he is really good chalk. And that's hard to walk away from.
All right, I'll be bouncing around here with the little mute button. I got a little bit of a cough today. I've got my Ricola cough drops. If those don't work, I've got Hall's sugar-free triple soothing action. So I'm prepared.
That was a loud cough, actually, Emac.
Oh gosh, my thing didn't work?
Nah, man.
Oh, maybe it's not working. Okay, well, darn it. I will try not to cough.
I'm just kidding, man.
Oh, you can't do this because I've had issues with it, and I thought I found a loose wire, so I think I had fixed it.
Nah.
And no, I don't have coronavirus. I hope not. I don't drink beer that often, but when I do, I prefer Dos Equis, not Corona. So there we go. Actually, Dos Equis Amber. In any event, let's get back on the rails here. I wanted to call out a couple guys that were high priced, maybe get some of your thoughts here. Our ownership projection is about 20 minutes old, but it is taken into account the last wave of news we have. And as soon as anything else comes in, they'll update that again. But looking at DK first, we've got DeMar DeRozan up at the top, 31. You've got Zion Williamson at about the same. You've got Norm Powell about 30. Terry Rozier 61 on DK, so not quite as good, favorably priced as he is on FanDuel, but he's coming in at 29%. Cody Zeller, the surprise for me, he's up there at 27%. It is because he's starting, and 2, he has power forward center eligibility on DraftKings, so that helps out. So that kind of rounds out our top 5 or so there. Over on FanDuel, it's Kyle Lowry, number 1, at 41%. Storm and Norman Powell is at 37%. Siakam, completing the sweep there for the Toronto Raptors, is at 31. Rozier at 30. De'Aaron Fox, who's been dealing with a core injury, abdominal wall injury. He is at 28. Then we have Gordon Hayward at 27, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson at 27. Zion, I wanted to get to him. He is at 26. Finally, over on Yahoo, it's Rozier at 44. Trey Lyles popping up. He's $14 there. He's played 40 and 37 minutes in the last 2 games with the injuries to LaMarcus Aldridge and, Jakob Poeltl. How could I forget his name? Jake Puddle. Jake Puddle did not make us happy the last 2 times he's played. And then Shake Milton. Why is Shake Milton 30%? Well, I don't know. He is $16 there, but that's pretty high for Shake Milton. I do like Shake Milton over on SuperDraft, where he has a mega multiplier, but we'll talk about that shortly. The games that we're kind of skipping for SuperDraft, the deal is only one. There's one 7:00 game at San Antonio at Charlotte. And then you have Boston at hosting Brooklyn as the 7:30 game, and then everything else starts at 8:00 or later. The exciting game, Chris, Minnesota at New Orleans. Now, here's what I wanted to call out. This is going to be the first time we see Zion Williamson on a back-to-back. Now, this is the front end of the back-to-back. The Pelicans play tomorrow. Let's see. They're on the road tomorrow, and then they are back home on Friday. So this is also the first of a 3 and 4. Also interesting, 4 of their next 5 games are going to be on ESPN. Featured games, and we know that they don't like people to sit their stars for that. Now, this is just additional information. I would suspect if, and this is just me guessing, if Zion were to not play a back-to-back, it would probably be the road game tomorrow because, they're at home on the other 2 rounds. No, for tonight. But I'm just saying, what if
tomorrow? Tomorrow too. They're fighting for that 8th seed.
Absolutely. I'm just putting it out there that if they didn't need him, if they got a nice blowout, maybe he only plays 23 minutes tonight. That's the risk we're looking at. Not that he doesn't play. Man,
it's hard. This game just screams just fantasy everywhere when you look at this game. A lot of the guys are priced fairly well too. It's a credible matchup. Minnesota's defense, not good whatsoever. Fast pace, extra possessions. I think it was on the morning show, with Adam talking about the over-under and why Vegas puts over-unders the way that they are because of usage, because of possessions, bad defenses. So this is the highest on the slate. With Redick being out, this is interesting because maybe Josh Hart can be put into consideration in roster construction if you're looking for someone cheap. Although majority of those minutes went to Etuan Moore last game, I think this is a different matchup. And I think also this favors Hart more. So if Hart does get a little bit more extra run, I do like Hart in this matchup. Zion I'm okay with. On SuperDraft, I think he's going to be the chalk. He just by far has the multiplier that's out of this world. But for me, any of these Pelicans, especially like Favors, who's in a really good matchup, he should eat tonight and a lot, the amount of time that he's on the court. Now, he closed out last game at the 5 EMAC against the Lakers because, obviously they do run 2 centers with McGee and Howard. Tonight, we could possibly see Zion close out at the 5. And if that's the case, that's a couple more minutes for Zion. So I love all the Pelicans here. I think if you're doing multi-entering, definitely try to figure out, how many you can fit in one lineup. I wouldn't say it's like a stack, but I would say that I don't mind having 1 or 2 in a lineup. And then on the other side of the ball, I think Beasley's in a great spot here. I think almost a 25% usage rate since the trade and him playing with D'Angelo Russell. So looking at his price point on FanDuel is what I like a lot. He's a little bit more pricier on DraftKings, but it's still in a great range. But I believe from what I see here on FanDuel, he is 5,500. Yeah, so 5,500 at shooting guard. I like Beasley a lot. He's probably my favorite Timberwolf in this matchup.
Absolutely concur with that one. He's going to be number 1 for me. It's a price thing. Number 2 is going to be D'Angelo Russell, just because he's kind of that guy that's in the mix for everything else. Russell does have 1.3 multiplier on SuperDraft. That's very nice. Zion has a 1.55. And I had mentioned Shake Milton earlier. I've got it up now. He has a 1.75. So while I don't want to pay mid-5s or 6 or 16, as the case is over on Yahoo for Milton, a 1.75 multiplier does go a long way.
You think this game stays competitive?
Which one? The
The Pelicans Timberwolves game, or do you think it has a shot to stay competitive?
I think based upon how fast both teams play and based upon the marginal defense, in particular for Minnesota, but just because everybody's playing fast, if they're taking threes, the variance could keep it closer.
That's what I think too. I mean, Minnesota, they've played somewhat decent ball over the last few games against pretty good teams. And so this is like no other. I know, New Orleans played really good against the Lakers last game. Here's the thing, though. I think the 11.5 point spread is probably a too bit of a wide of a margin. I do think that this could also give Beasley and Russell a little bit more extra run as well. If it is close, I think it will come down to the guard position. So that's why I do like Russell and Beasley even more, especially Beasley at his price point.
All right, so here's a fun one. I dug this one up today. So Lonzo Ball. He's played every game since December 1st. So that totals, 41 games. 15 games have been with Zion. Now, Zion's played all but one game from when he returned. So I moved that over into the without Zion column. With Zion, Lonzo Ball is playing 35 minutes per game. Without, it's 32.8. The fantasy points with are 38.8. 32 without. So you're saying, all right, well, what's changing? Yes, he's playing a couple more minutes, but what's changing? And his points have actually gone down from 12.5 to 10.7, but his assists go up to 8.7 from 6.5. His steals go up by 0.6. His blocks double from 0.42 to 0.87. So I think this is doing two things having Zion on the court with him. One, gets the assist because he's giving it to a guy in the paint that's just going to make it in a basketball motion. And especially in today's generous assists, like they're giving him out, that's how he's going to get it. And two, he can gamble a little bit more on defense now that they have a fully competent big back there. I'm not saying Zion's patrolling the paint and shutting things down, but I think it's just having another guy back there with Favors, with Ingram, et cetera. It's allowing Ball a little more confidence to jump the passing lane and to go close out for blocks. So I just found that to be interesting. So as we're looking for any little nugget here, I found that to be interesting.
I think Ball is also a great leverage play for a GBP standpoint. A lot of people will focus on probably De'Aaron Fox, Lowry, and also Rozier. And then you have those two other guys that stand out that are kind of in the same area of Ball and Paul. Lonzo Ball, I mean, for DraftKings, I think it's great as far as his upside, especially with the double bonus opportunity.
You're thinking baseball. I heard you say double.
Yeah, I know. I did on that. I was doing a lot of MLB work earlier today, but yeah, I mean, I think Lonzo, just based on ownership wise and knowing what his upside can be, and if he is able to knock down a few threes as well, I think the DK value is definitely there. And I do like him as well, considering his ownership is somewhat fair on FanDuel as well.
All right. Now, you guys are going to want to remember because SuperDraft also does have baseball, so that will be fun as well. But
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they get you locked in year round here. They've got PGA going on right now. They closed out the season with single game NFL. They of course have the basketball. They've got head to heads, 50-50s, smaller entry tournaments. They've got the nickel, which I've played twice now. It's 150 entries, but each one is a nickel. So there's like 5,700 people in it, but you can you can be a mass multi-entry person for $7.50.
What does first place pay? Like
I think 20? First place pays like 20 or $25.
Woo!
So, yeah,
fired up.
Last of the big spenders. They're clearly appealing to me, but it's a lot of fun over there. So I just want to remind everybody it's a good time. If you use the promo code Awesemo when you make your first deposit, if you put in $100, they will give you $20 immediately in super cash, which comes out of your account first and when you're signing up for contests. So very, very slick, very easy, all that stuff. All right, finishing up kind of the Pelicans Timberwolves game here. We're getting the question, how many Pelicans is too many Pelicans? I don't really see the need to have more than 3. If I have 3, I'd really want to make sure I've got Beasley or Russell coming back the other way. Just because at that point you're hoping the game, meets the already lofty expectations of the 247 over under.
Well, I don't understand why Beasley is just not getting more love than really what's been shown. I mean, right now, currently ownership is showing just over 16%. I mean, his price on FanDuel is just outrageous. It's such a great spot. So, I mean,
1.65 multiplier on SuperDraft.
I think that's a great spot too for SuperDraft as well. I think he's in a great spot. So, if you're looking for someone who's, I think, in the teen digit percentile for ownership, any one of these guys are pretty solid. And I think not too many people are being heavily weighted on this game, but I think you mentioned a great thing. 3 guys, I think, is the max Pelicans. But I mean, if you want to go 4, I mean, obviously that's up to you. But yeah, definitely run it back with Russell or Beasley, because if this is going to be what it is, you definitely want someone from the other side.
Absolutely. And we've seen things disappoint. Surprising things happen, like the Washington Wizards taking the Milwaukee Bucks to overtime. They're teams blowing 20-point leads. Weird stuff happens. That's why they play all the games, etc. Do we think this is going to be a track meet? Yeah, it's shaping up to be. Would it be shocking if it ended up being 112, 115? No, it wouldn't, and that would still be 20 points below the over under. And that would be a 10% miss basically from that. So just keep in mind that variance, different outcomes, etc.
Naz Reid and Hernan Gomez, I mean, they're getting love right now. A little bit over 10% ownership for each guy. Reid did shoot 13 times last game, which I believe is tied for his second highest shooting total. He went 4 for 13, so I mean, it wasn't great. Did put up 27 DK points. Now, in this matchup, though, it's a little bit tougher against Derek Favors, but I don't know how I feel about Reid. I'm still trying to figure that out right now, as I have him right now at just 4%. But Reid is interesting, and I would say probably more on the FanDuel side, because he is a little cheaper at 4,600. But once again, I don't love him, but he is someone that you can consider. And I think Hernan Gomez, EMAC, people will go to just because of his last game. Recency bias, absolutely, I think. 2 games before, 50 points against Orlando, but even last game put up 32 against Dallas. So the minutes will be there. You gotta put him in right now. I have him at 28, 29 minutes. So these guys are okay. As far as how much you should invest in them, I mean, that would be up to you. But I think that they should be considered outside of those main pieces that we spoke of.
All right, I'm just loading a placeholder lineup here. I forgot I registered for a bunch of the tiers contests over here on DK. It's okay. All right, there we go. I'll be happy if I don't get around. I've learned to not put guys in if I can avoid it till those early games so I can get to it. But then I started thinking, I'm like, we're really going to be on till 7:30, so I really can't have anybody from the first.
I got my NHL lineups going too, So
I only did one NHL lineup. I was worried I couldn't get to all of it tonight. Normally, when I'm on air, I do too. But
I was in first last night, and basically almost all the tournaments I entered in for NHL into that third period. And then this Edmonton team. Now, don't get me wrong, I know nothing about NHL. I'm just using the stack tool. I'm following Jay Kari because I think he's the GOAT in NHL. But yeah, I mean, they scored like 5 goals in 3 minutes, and I'm like, man, this feels like a back-to-back home run situation right now with MLB. So I was kind of feeling it because it's a stacking type of sport. So there's a lot of similarities with NHL and MLB. So if you're ever looking to get an NHL, that's why Adam Shit My Money won that, because he has some MLB skill.
Yes. It's on the Awesemo projections, ownership projections, as well as the DFS top stack tool, which are all key. I have the NHL projections are free today if you guys want to dabble in that, but it has been a lot of fun.
Cody Martin is starting. EMAC, sorry, it just came out. So I kind of, if you're looking for a cheap guy to fill in, there's going to be 2 other guys that I'm going to speak of here shortly, but just to let everyone know that, Cody Martin is starting. He's 4,100 on DK. He's going to see probably 29, 30 minutes if I had to guess. And yeah, I mean, just someone, if you're looking for someone cheap, just keep in mind.
All right. Now, so here's a good question here. So we've got a lot of new viewers. So I just want to remind everybody, they're asking, is chalk it says chalk in the NBA is okay? Yes. Chalk in the NBA is okay. It's the one sport that is relatively projectable. Now, Is that what the outcome is going to be? No, but we can get a pretty good median projection on most of our players based upon rotation, so that can adjust usage rates, rebound rates, etc., opponent factors, pace of game, defensive efficiency, rebounds, closing out threes, yada, yada, yada. So all that gets baked into this stuff. Problem is they still got to play it. But when you get someone who's chalk, they're usually worth being chalk for a very specific reason. So I like to write up in the DFS building blocks article every day, someone, if I can find somebody that's risky chalk. I had to stop writing up calling it bad chalk because no one would read it. They just look at the name, and if that person did good or bad, they'd be like, oh, you suck. It's like, okay, but that's you got to read the explanation. Like yesterday, so here's one. Yeah, you suck, you Mac. I said Tyus Jones was a risky play. Well, his role has changed to where he now plays about 4 to 6 minutes on the court with Ja Morant, whereas before he was their direct backup. But the problem was you couldn't really play him and Ja Morant together because he really wasn't going to exceed 22 to 25 minutes. Not the problem, but he nailed everything last night. Was dropping dimes in the fourth quarter of that massive blowout, had 4 steals, etc. He had like 40 fantasy points. That is an outcome, but when you go look at the minutes and then saw how he got there, you're like, wow, we lucked into that one. Yes, we did. That'll happen sometimes, but it's just trying to show a more volatile player in those situations. So sometimes I'll say, hey, why is everybody on? I'll make up somebody today. I can't remember who I wrote up today, but making up somebody. Harrison Barnes. Get a lot of people on Harrison Barnes. Good matchup against the Wizards. He's reasonably priced, etc. But go look at his game logs. He never has that large outcome of a game. So he is going to disappoint more often than not from a tournament perspective because he doesn't have that boom upside.
I mean, speaking of chalk, what's interesting about the chalk for tonight on DK is that you got 4, 5, 6 of like the first 10 people are part of probably the ugliest game on the slate in the Hornets Spurs game. Now, you want to talk about good chalk and bad chalk. I mean, there's good chalk. Terry Rozier, he's good chalk.
Yes.
DeMar DeRozan, the last couple games has struggled. Granted, Aldridge has been out, so there's been the expectation that DeRozan, should excel at almost every time, especially with the usage rate up and the assist percentage rate up. But you got to think that tonight, his efficiency has to improve. This is a better situation. He's underpriced. And so, it makes sense for him as far as being good chalk. Terry Rozier, we talked about his numbers earlier. Without Graham and without Monk in the lineup, his usage rate and assist rate is inflated. So, yeah, that's a great play. Zeller is interesting because he does split time with Biyombo, but you have to think that a lot of these Charlotte guys are chalk tonight because they're going to probably run an 8-man rotation, possibly 9. I mean, I don't know if Batum plays or not, but it's just interesting because you would have to ask, okay, well, there's good chalk, but then also, like, is Zeller good chalk or is he bad chalk? He did put up 48 DK points against the Spurs last time. And I mean, now with really a weak front court, and now you got Lyles in there, and Lyles is high in chalk, but his price point's up now. I mean, what happens with that? So this is something where I don't think Lyles is a good play tonight. And I just think that you can get more for his price point at that position. And I just feel like you can shy away from that and have a distinct advantage over the field who will plug in Lyles. Zeller's a little more bit different because he's so cheap. He's $3,900, so you don't need much from him to get there. But, I mean, Lyles is going to give you the minutes, right? And that's why people are going to play him mostly. But, I mean, these are just pretty much examples of, what to do and what not to do in chalk situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And my thought here is just to say, man, I'll start building my lineups here in a second. But
is Biyombo out tonight?
So I was just looking at that. So here's what
because it doesn't. It says he says available.
Yeah. So here's what they're inferring. Because the last 3 games, and this is courtesy of Roto World, I just went and looked at that blob, so I'm just repeating how they're coming at this. So Zeller missed the last 3 games, or did not play, coach's decision. That's what, when you guys see in the box score DNP, that stands for did not play, and then they'll put a reason. DNP CD stands for coach's decision. Otherwise, it'll say ankle, back, stomach, illness, flu, whatever it might be afterwards. So he hadn't played in 3, and Biyombo started those. So their thought is, it's going to be Biyombo getting the night off. Zeller's going to play, but Hernan Gomez is still going to be the backup, is where they're going with this. I don't have any more than that, but it wouldn't surprise me because Charlotte for the last almost 3 years has just screwed around with their centers.
Dude, I mean, people are saying, Lyles is is a must play, extended run. He averages 0.92 points per minute. And you have two other guys, Thies and Jared Allen, who average 1.11 fantasy points per minute, who are in the same price range that almost have the same exact projection and have garnered smaller ownership. So in a GPP play, it's essentially more leverage to go Tice or Jared Allen against Lyles in this situation. Now, I'm not saying that Lyles isn't a bad play. I'm just not feeling it because so many more people are on him tonight and he's heavily owned. So I'd rather find elsewhere if I'm trying to win. I'm not trying to have a duplicate or the same lineup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now for mine, I'm playing in smaller field contests here, not the super duper top heavy one. So I approach things slightly differently, but that's absolutely the game theory. Most of my contests that I enter usually have 1,000, 2,000 people in them. So, and some will have as few as 500 or 271 or whatever I'm doing. I can play more chalky players because you really don't have to knock out that many other people. So you can have a chalkier lineup and you just mathematically, you don't have to beat as many people because my 1% lineup in there probably means I finished in a 200 or 500 person contest, I finished top 5.
Yeah.
My 1% lineup in a big one means I probably 3x'd my money, maybe 3.5, maybe. You got to be 0.01 if you want to be top 10. So that's when you start looking at stuff like Josh and I think it was Adam today. We're talking about they were studying a gamer. I can't remember which gamer it was, so I don't want to say it and be wrong. But they were saying it looked like they left $100 no matter what in their
giant squid.
Okay, so which is an interesting theory because just by that, if you don't have that cap, because the optimizers are just going for fractions, they'll try to use everything. So it's not uncommon to max out your salary. If you eliminate that already, there's going to be 4 or 5% of the lineups. You're just not. You're never going to duplicate with them. And that's what when Josh is doing these, when Alex is doing these, Adam's doing these, etc. And it sounds like what you're doing. You want to be first because if you're third, if you're 10th, if you're 15th, there's not much money in it.
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned during this NBA season is the fact of I kept having similar lineups, and that was preventing me from trying to get first because at the end of the day, that's what we all play for. You're either playing to win or, that's it. Because it's so top heavy in these prize pools. And I'll give you a perfect example. It's like, LeBron James, Siakam, and Ingram tonight, right? It's, the top 3 small forward positions of the guys available. But, they, ranged a little bit differently in projected point totals. But you got Ingram, who's the highest of the 3. He's 7,900, 43 projected fantasy points. Now, when you look at Siakam, he's a little bit down in ownership, but he's only $300 more, and he's projected for a higher point total by almost 4 points. So it's like, okay, you can go with the Fields. Ingram's in a way better situation, obviously a great matchup, or you can pivot and, pay up a little bit. And, these are the kind of over time you kind of learn, okay, pivoting and, choosing exactly how can I differentiate myself and be different, because being different allows you a better opportunity to take down essentially, a better position of being in first because you don't want to have the same lineup. But there's really no right or wrong play as far as when it comes to chalk. I think it's, if you strongly feel that chalk is a great play that night, which a lot of the times chalk is really, good, just like CJ McCollum last night, then you go along with it. But I think this Brooklyn-Boston game without Tatum
Yeah, hit
tonight,
us up with some Jaylen Brown here. What do you want to do with him? He seems like a savvy move.
Yeah, so Jaylen Brown and Hayward are pretty interesting on FanDuel, 62 and 6,000 respectively. Obviously, with Tatum out, his minutes have to go elsewhere. As well as his usage, which, pretty strong considering how much Tatum has the ball in his hands. So I really do like Jaylen tonight a little bit more than Gordon Hayward. It seems like Jaylen is, one of the primary ball handlers when Tatum's out. And I think they mentioned that Walker's on a minutes limit tonight. So Jaylen Brown, for me, kind of shoots up as the second highest rated small forward for me tonight. And his projection is not that far off from Ingram or Siakam. So I'm okay with saving that salary and going elsewhere. And if you're looking to play like LeBron James tonight, you could go like James and Brown and be kind of different at the small forward position. So I think Jaylen Brown over Hayward in this matchup. But looking at the rest of this game, Kemba's minutes we already know about, but they're going to run 2 centers. The Nets struggle against big men. So I like Tice. I mentioned that Tice is kind of in that same area as Lyles tonight. And I think, given that Tice has a little bit more upside, averages a little bit more fantasy points per minute, this is a good spot for him. So I like him, and he's not having that much ownership compared to Lyles. So I like that as a leverage play. I think Adam mentioned it on one of the shows that he liked Enes Kanter. That's interesting because, if they're going to play 2 big men all night for the Nets, and Kanter's pretty cheap on DraftKings, if you're looking for a guy for a pump play, I don't mind that either when looking into it, considering how well centers have done against the Nets. So, and then you have Dinwiddie and LeVert, which I think are the only 2 Nets I would consider here, EMAC. I'm not really too high on Harris or Prince. I feel like those are the only 2 safe guys that I would go with. LeVert does have the higher usage since Irving has been out, but Dinwiddie has had the higher assist percentage. So take that for what it's worth. But I like Dinwiddie. He projects out a little bit better than LeVert. But other than that, I think Jaylen Brown should be looked at a little bit more in this matchup now that Tatum's out.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's one of my top guys now on SuperDraft. He's in the placeholder lineup I have over there. Again, we're going to go from 7 to 7:30 talking about SuperDraft, but Jaylen Brown is a 1.6 multiplier. So what that means is they're going to put 60% on top of his fantasy points. That's pretty phenomenal when you look at guys like, let me get back to Beal's at 1.0 today. You've got Kawhi Leonard at 1.05, Davis at 1.05. Jokic at 1. So you can see that all of a sudden, would you rather play, Beal, or would you rather play Jaylen Brown? Well, if I'm getting a 60% kicker, I'd rather play Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I think I would agree too. Beal, he is interesting tonight just because not too many people are on him. And this guy has shown multiple times he can get in that 67 fantasy point range. But I just don't think tonight is the night that you want to go to Beal on this high of a slate with 8 games. I just don't. I think you can really find a lot of other great areas. What's interesting about tonight, EMAC, I think the biggest thing is point guard is such an interesting spot because so many guys are priced in the same area and their projections vary a little differently. And so looking at it tonight, I think you're going to see a lot more diversity at the point guard position, maybe outside of Rozier. And also maybe a little bit outside of Lowry because he is in a good spot. Van Fleet out, 6,900. He projects to me as probably the second best point guard currently. But other guys like Jamal Murray in a great spot against Golden State at home, but it scares me because it's such a big point, a spread that how long does he play? Like, do they take it easy tonight? Does he only run like 27, 28 minutes? And this is where I like 2 other guys that are cheap plays on DraftKings, and that's Monte Morris and Torrey Craig. I think given their price points and given this situation, if it is a blowout run, we could see a little bit more extended minutes for them, maybe into the higher 20s. They are both cheap respectively, and they both can score. So for me, looking at it, not too many people are on them. And also Gary Harris. They struggle against shooting guards, and they're a top 10 team in turnovers, the Golden State Warriors are. So Gary Harris, known for his defensive skills. For me, it's in a good spot. He's, in 3,900 on DK. We need him to get 30 DK points. I don't think it's not a possibility. I think it is a possibility that he gets there. So cheap guys on Denver are somewhat interesting considering this spread and maybe how this game plan rolls out. I don't think Golden State goes into Denver and makes it competitive by any means.
All right. See, someone was saying just play bigs against Charlotte, which I agree is a good thing to do. I just want to point out Trey Lyles did play a little bit of small forward. Was he with Denver or with Utah? Was he with both? I'm forgetting now. But he's more of a power forward. He's only 6'9". Now he does have a career per 36, 6.9 rebounds per 36. So that's not bad. But just want to point out he's kind of more of a versatile player, I guess, than I would think of as a true big, if you will. Now I know he played for Denver, but
I love this.
Oh, he played for Denver and Utah. He did two years for each. No wonder I thought in my mind I was crossing my wires. Nope. He did play for both teams.
Yeah, he played. He played 20. He played 27.3 minutes against Charlotte already this season. Took 6 shots, scored 19 DK points. So like I said, I don't know. I mean, hey, if you want to play him, go ahead. I don't think it's a bad play. For me, I want to differentiate and go elsewhere and try to go against that type of chalk because I'm not going to have an entire chalk team.
Let me see. We got 2 good questions. They're asking me about Eubanks. I know he started last night, but I didn't ever go back and look and see. He played 17 minutes. He had 3 points, a block, in 2 rebounds. That just doesn't feel great. So he's a rookie. He has played the game before that where he got a little luckier. He played the same 17 minutes. He went 4 for 4, had 10 points, 3 rebounds. Yeah, I wouldn't play him. He's the kind of guy you'd play on a showdown or a 2-game late slate where you needed extreme salary relief. But I would have no interest in him personally, even if he were the guy starting, just based on that. Now, there was a note that Greg Popovich had some sort of personal matter he's attending to tonight. So it's actually going to be Tim Duncan, assistant coach, running the squad in the rotations tonight. But I don't know what that means one way or the other.
Hey, by the way, what do we do about Tim Duncan coaching tonight? Is that legit?
Yeah. This happens, sometimes people have their daughters, sons' graduations or stuff like that, or they get really, really sick or something. So this probably happens, I would say, once a month. They just never really hear about it a lot of the times. But you remember way back when Steve Kerr 2 years ago was out and Luke Walton was coaching for him.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, but like my reason for bringing it up was, does he run the game any differently tonight?
Highly doubted. He's played his entire career for Pop. He's probably the heir apparent there. No, I think it's just going to be the Spurs way.
That's what I'm saying. You think he gets cute and just does something completely different?
Yeah. Can you imagine Tim Duncan coloring outside the lines ever? I can't.
I mean, can you imagine just coming in for 5 minutes and putting up a double real quick?
You mean player coach? He's going to sign himself to a contract.
Remember rostering Tim Duncan, man, back when he was playing?
He was pretty good. Last player coach I remember, Mike Dunleavy Sr. had to play a couple times when he was an assistant coach with the Bucks. I think he did that 2 different seasons. They got short on guards. Tree Rollins was an actual player coach with Houston. Might have done it with Orlando too. He barely played at all. For all intents and purposes, Udonis Haslem is basically a player coach at this point for Miami.
Yeah.
There we are. I see my dream girl, Celeste, is in chat. Thank you, Celeste. I've missed you. Let's see.
Is that a real girl?
I am your old
pal. Wow, Celeste. Wow. That's it.
She's enthusiastic in more than just chat, shall we say.
Yo, I love the fact that she said pal or Lou Will.
So the bots are smart enough now that they just use our comments against us.
Dude, if she's on pal or Lou Will, I might have to recalibrate these projections real quick because
she's talking about Jokic now. So,
dude, oh man, I'll play Jokic anyway. I don't know why I'm getting a kick out of that. I'm sorry. This is funny.
I can't get to him fast enough. Josh, if you're around, you want to work your magic.
I mean, hey, maybe she has some hot takes real quick. So, you never know.
Oh, she's got some hot something.
Oh, wow. Yo, she said, I like George if he gets 30 plus minutes. Hey, honestly, that's not a bad take, Celeste. I'm going to have to agree with her on that because Paul George's price point is egregious on FanDuel. 6,800. It's like, come on, man. And then he's 7,100 on DK. I mean, for me, Celeste might have a point there, Emac. If we want to talk about Paul George real quick, he's probably the only Clipper I like just because all these guys, it's so evened out, man, with the production that it's really hard to kind of focus on someone. But George does have that upside.
All right. Well, I got rid of Celeste, but now it's Jamina.
Oh, they subbed her out?
Well, so what they do is they is they changed. Oh, now Raphelia's in there. They changed their they changed their name by changing the emoticons on the back end. So it's their program sets up that if I ban one of them, they've already changed their name to a different one, so it doesn't count.
Damn, that's so interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, I know Paul George hasn't had the best of years. I mean, it's been a complete downtrend as far as who he's been as a player this year. But he always has those potential upside situations. So it's hard because he is somewhat of still, an all-star, whatever the case may be, if you want to classify him as that. But he does have that ability. And if he gets hot from three, especially for DK purposes, I mean, last game played 30 minutes, EMAG, put up 24 points, made 4 threes, 36 points. But, it's just one of those things where you never know. So as far as that game, OKC's guys are priced pretty fairly. I don't mind if you want to go Paul. I think Steven Adams is in a great matchup. I know there's been talk about Nerlens Noel. He is cheap. So if you're looking for a cheap guy to plug in, you definitely can go that route too. But I think Paul George, when you look at the Clippers as a whole, I mean, I forgot who mentioned it, but 10 of these guys are all NBA rotational players. I mean, that's how deep this team is. So, but George, he does have that upside of potentially, you never know. So if you want to consider him, I don't mind it because it's just, taking that chance. And that's what sometimes pays off in GBP format.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about how they do have a deep rotation.
I mean, they got 10 guys that, can essentially just be on any team in the league. So, yeah, I mean, they're deep. And
because I would say the Bucks have a pretty deep rotation, but you can't really say a bunch of their guys would make it on the other teams. Like elevating up. Yeah, they'd be on most of the other teams in the league, but they'd still be at their 9th or 10th man status.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think one game too that we haven't really spoke of yet is this Washington-Sacramento game.
Okay.
I'm always a BJ fan.
Hey, me too.
I mean, I think the bots would like that comment, in the chat. But yeah, I think Bjelica, his price point is nice, EMAC, on FanDuel. When looking at these power forwards, I always trying to see where I can make some type of different move. And he's not getting much love as far as the ownerships, but 10% projected, EMAC. And I mean, he has a lot of upside tonight on the boom percentage as well. If you guys don't have that, the tool from Alex, the boomer bust, 4,800. You're going to play 30 plus minutes in a great spot. This is going to be an up pace game. A lot more possessions, a lot more rebounding opportunities for BJ. So keep in mind that 4,800 on FanDuel, that can go a long way, and that can save you and potentially give you a guy that can put up the same amount, if not more, against a guy like Lyles.
Those are valid points as well. 11 minutes here coming into lock. No real breaking news has happened other than Garrett Temple is now available to play. Kind of further muddying things for Brooklyn there, since we didn't really like anybody outside of LeVert or Dinwiddie. That's really not going to move the needle on those guys. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll down here in the premium Slack chat so I can get a couple questions here. Thoughts on swapping from Rozier to Fox on FanDuel?
How do you swap from Rozier?
I'm assuming it's a 2v2, then he might have two other guys that fit in that he likes, but they're not similarly priced.
I mean, it's an $1,800 price difference. So first off, you're paying up. I mean, we would have to know kind of what other move is being made. But yeah, I mean, Fox is
from a leverage theory.
I don't think it's not too much difference because there's only a 3% difference in ownership. Yeah. So, I mean, you're not getting too much leverage there. And also, I mean, it's only a couple points in projection too. So, but they're both great plays. I think Fox is in a really great situation tonight against Washington. Yeah, I mean, if you want to pay up and get Fox, I guess, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, I mean, both of them are great plays.
All right. I better do a crunch now. That feels like it's about that time on the show where this should happen. Boucher or Eubanks? Oh, good God. Well, dude, real Ryan, that's a FanDuel question. We can't have a drop a player anymore. But if I had to take one, it would be Boucher.
That's interesting. Probably Boucher, man. I think I'd like Rawls, Hollis, Jefferson a little bit more, but Boucher, and then any love for James Johnson and a DK GBP. Yeah, I mean, why not? GBP, of course, you got to sprinkle in some of those guys, so I don't mind it.
They put it in here. So it's Fox and Horford or Rozier and Zion. Now that makes a big difference. So here's an interesting one. Al Horford, I didn't really want to play at 4,800 10 days ago. I'm now considering him in my player pool at, what is he, 6,200 or whatever it is on DK. What has changed? Well, 3 of the starters have gone out. So that makes a huge difference for him. But yeah, it's funny that I was ready to, just put him in back of the closet and wait for spring before getting to him again. And now all of a sudden here we are 10 days later and he's in my plan. So
I would say Rozier and Williamson. I love that combo compared to Fox and Horford. Horford, I'm a little bit nervous because obviously he's going to go up against the defense of the Lakers and also Anthony Davis. So I don't know if rebounds will be as easy for Horford in this situation. I think Zion's in a smash spot, Rozier's smash spot. I mean, it's just so hard to say no to Rozier. And what's crazy about Rozier is that he can easily give us that floor. That's lower than what his projected floor is. So, don't be upset if Rozier goes 3 for 17 and doesn't hit there. But, then again, his price point and his skill set, I mean, he can easily smash. And if you're not a part of that, it's going to be hard to kind of catch up with the chalk.
I still can't believe Beasley's coming in at like 11 to 12%.
Dude, am I crazy for thinking that Beasley is such a great play?
No, I'm going to play him at 30. I've set my cap for him at 35 now, just because I want to do that. Thoughts on Grant if Millsap sits? Love Grant if Millsap sits. Love Grant even if Millsap plays, because I don't think he'll play more than 20 minutes tonight. They have designs on the second season. They're not worried about this matchup tonight. So if anything, it might be a testing the waters if Millsap plays. That's just my opinion. I've read nothing about that, but it just feels like
Norman Powell's 4,900 tonight on FanDuel. As far as point per dollar wise and the value, he's extreme value tonight. And just want to mention, as far as the chalk is concerned, I do think he is a fair chalk play. It's hard to ignore Powell at 4,900 tonight, EMAC.
Jokic or Ayton. I think Jokic is in a class by himself on FanDuel, kind of like Giannis was last night. They're so much better projected than everybody else. You can put Booker in the mix there, but he doesn't have the best matchup here going against Toronto. I would, they were asking, I'd still, on DK, I'm just looking at it right now. I'd prefer Ayton just by a tiny bit, but there's an out. Ayton's also power forward, so I get more flexibility, and that $1,000 discount can be put to use elsewhere. But I would think, taking into account price per dollar, I think they grade out relatively equally, in my opinion.
So I'm getting these lineups, and I just forgot I got hockey too. So now I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. So I'm gonna have to skip the 7 o'clock games for hockey, I think, because it's just not happening right now.
There's quite a few late games. So I will say, if you're doing it tonight, you've got outs. You've got Vegas. Go Vegas 1, Vegas 2 at the end. They'll hook you up.
I like that.
I'm just getting ready to hit crunch here. Oh, Zion. So we'll see. I really like Zion. And remember, we're going to be on for till 7:30, guys. So we'll get all of your SuperDraft questions. And if you're playing on late swap sites, you can still ask us questions here. There's just one game locking at 7. It's Charlotte and San Antonio. So a lot of people are going to want players from those games. But we can talk about those. We can change. Late swap pivots, et cetera, et cetera.
One guy who's not getting too much love, PJ Washington. He's priced right there, EMAC, with $100 shorter than Lyles on FanDuel. A shout out to PJ Washington. I think he's a good play tonight at that price point.
I am not going over his ownership. He terrifies me. He and Miles Bridges. I actually cut Miles Bridges in half. The reason I did that with Bridges is he's got about a 20% usage rate, and half of his fantasy production comes from scoring. That's a lot to ask for a slow-paced team to be consistent. Now, should there be additional opportunities? I did the podcast last night with Adam Pfeiffer, and he pointed out that Bridges is one of their better spot-up shooters. and that's a decent way to go. But my question is, what is the volume when you've got a team that has about 95 possessions per game? So, I'm going to be down to the wire here myself. But if you're on the premium chat, I can answer questions because they'll pop up in my little feed here. But YouTube fellas, and ladies, you're going to have to hang on, and ladies, because I know that Celeste is still there. So
is she?
She's lurking. She can't ever quit us.
Damn.
Let's see. Drew and OG or Booker and Jalen. I would go with Booker and Jalen. Booker, I think, will benefit from the 2 days off. They had played six games in 9 days going into their last one, or it was their 6th in 9. I think the time off is going to help them out. SuperDraft, yes, we'll talk about them. They don't lock until 7:30, so we've got a moment. We've got a minute, as I believe everybody younger than me may say. Let's see. I've got 3 minutes, so I'm now. How do
you feel about Zeller tonight?
Oh, I need to make sure. I just set a rule where I can't get more than 3 Charlotte players. Because in my lineup, because I just saw the first 6 come up had 4, and I'm like, I don't need that many Charlotte guys.
So we'll talk about our lineups too as we.
I'm getting a decent chunk of Norman Powell. Siakam's coming up pretty good. I've got my share of the New Orleans guys. I am not only 21% Malik Beasley for me.
Really?
Do I want more? No, you know what? That seems fun. That's double. You know what? We're thinking that's double the field. I bet that's going to be a little less. Let's just boost his projections a little bit, and we'll go. But I've got a better way of doing this. I will just do a little game stack here with my last one. Now, see, this is where I get cute up to lock and things happen where I don't get my guys in that I wanted. But let's do Ingram, Zion. We'll run 10 more with that. And then that's probably counterproductive. So we'll run, where's Lonzo Ball and Zion? We'll do 10 more. And then I'm running out of time.
This is turning into a.
Well, this is why you notice that it's a revolving cast of guys that do the shows up to lock because it's stressful. We're playing with our own money. We've got to keep everybody engaged and entertained. And if we don't, if we have a misstep, it really can be costly on the old ROI because you have to then make up for it time and time again. And that is the hard part. So hopefully I'll get these in. Maybe not. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But I didn't set my rules today.
Man, just got it in.
My
dummy lineup for NHL. Oh my god. I hope that I'm able to make some adjustments here.
Well, I'm not. Let's just say I'm not playing very much Charlotte tonight because
really
I got in 10% of my lineups went in before it locked.
Oh man. You all right?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Oh, it's only money. Come on.
Surprisingly, Lyles is only 24% on FanDuel.
All right, now let's go back to maybe it's oh yeah, this happens a lot. But see, I'm fine. So guys, this is why you build out your lineups. I didn't have anybody in until if this one didn't go in, everybody else I played was from the 8 o'clock or later games. So I can recover. I can at least have live lineups. There's nothing worse than like running a placeholder lineup with 100% Eubanks in it with the only person locking, and then you've got to solve your entire night around that. It's not worth it. What you do and tonight there's still going to be 6 games after we get off the air. That's plenty. It's like I'm playing a 6-game slate. Am I a little unhappy that it's all that Charlotte value is now not going to be in my player pool? Yeah, but whatever. Maybe Charlotte has a bad game. This happened last time, actually. There was a good spot where everybody's playing both Rozier and Graham, and same thing happened to me. I couldn't get to it, so I just punted on that game. It's amazing how many times Charlotte is the only 7 o'clock start. And both those guys literally shit the bed. And I actually ended up better off by not having them. So it cuts both ways. It is what it is. But the other thing I can do is, say there were only 4 games after this or 3 games, I'd start building a bunch more game stacks and just hoping something went into overtime or did better than I expected, etc. Is all. Stayed closer, just go that route. And then, sometimes it works out, sometimes you don't. At least twice a week, I completely forget I'm on some subslate of hockey. It just happens. When we were recording the podcast on Sunday night, I forgot. Guess what? My placeholder lineup ended up being a 5% lineup. It cashed in a train and probably pissed everybody else off, but
really?
Whatever.
That's amazing.
So anyway, let's talk SuperDraft. Any surprises yet? I'm going to call up the ownership real quick, and then we'll do SuperDraft.
Any surprises? Well, I mean, it's hard to say no to Zion, right? Because of his, if I believe they haven't changed it. It's 1.55 multiplier. So, correct. And I think I like Norman Powell too as a sneaky multiplier because he's 1.55 as well. But then you got Jaylen Brown at 1.6. Looking down in the forward position. So there's a lot of guys here. I know that typically you look up and you're like, okay, we got Davis, Leonard, LeBron. But yeah, man, as you scroll down and forward, and then, at the guard position, I think for me, who I like the most is Beasley, 1.65 multiplier. And then other than that, though, as far as any value guys, I think Milton, he's 1.75 EMAC. If he's going to play what he does, I mean, obviously I don't think he's going to shoot the same as what we just saw, but he's still 1.75. And if he does have that upside and potential in his game, you got to consider him.
All right, here is the ownership. Terry Rozier came in at 43%.
I don't hate it.
Trey Lyles came in at 40.
Which tournament is that?
This is the DK $10.
Okay.
200 and whatever that 300,000, 100 to first.
Okay.
Cody Zeller came in at 34. Again, multi-position eligibility and super cheap. So that one I'm okay with. I would want to be under Lyles on that one. I'm a little scared with Terry Rozier, but you know what? Terry Rozier has disappointed in these situations enough that, you know what? I'm not going to worry that I don't have very much of him. Cody Martin, 20. Miles Bridges, 20. DeMar DeRozan, 33. And then everybody else thins out rapidly. PJ Washington, 8. Patty Mills, 5. Rudy Gay, 4. Caleb Martin, 3. DeJounte Murray, 3. Bismack Biyombo, 3.1. Wow. Ooh. There's a chance he plays, but not a good one.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Dwayne Bacon, 0.02. He is down in the G League, as is Kobe. Bacon's in the G League, as is Kobe Simmons. Oh, as Malik Monk was suspended. I don't see Malik Monk on anybody's team. Kobe Simmons made somebody's lineup. Marco Bellinelli, he's ruled out, made somebody's lineup. Joe Cheeley just signed a second 10-day contract. He's available. Yeah.
Have you come close to winning on SuperDraft yet?
No. I usually only play 1 or 2 lineups. Because usually I'm on air, and it's a little hard. Because, see, now I've got to fix all my DK lineups. So, but SuperDraft, reminder. So let's talk a little bit about them. They're going to lock at we got 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So they are going to lock at 7:25. Okay. I have cashed 3 days in a row, which is nice. Will I make it 4? I don't know. Right now they have 2,100 spots open in their jump shot. Now it'll pop for a few minutes here as people move over from the other sites and start focusing on it. But that's probably, we may get actual overlay. It's almost assuredly going to be reduced rake, if not almost rake free. So key things you want to remember about SuperDraft: if you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo, and you put in a deposit of $100, they will give you $20 in super cash. Their website is at superdraft.io. And of course, here, according to Laffy, we must pronounce it SuperDraft. So there we go. Now my voice is cracking because I've had so many cough drops today. But let's see. My placeholder lineup today. D'Angelo Russell has a 1.3 multiplier. I like that. I've got Shake Milton in at the moment, 1.75. I like the multiplier. There are some other options I could pivot to. I like Lonzo Ball, so I'm putting him in. He's 1.45. Zion Williamson will be one of the most popular plays tonight between him and Jaylen Brown, because Brown, of course, doesn't have to contend with Jason Tatum. Williamson is at a 1.55 multiplier, which is where he's been for about 10 games now, and Brown is at 1.6. I like both those guys. Now, they do have late swap, which is key because I'm not sure what I want to do. I've got LeBron James in here right now, but if Anthony Davis plays, I don't really want LeBron. But at the moment, LeBron has a 10% kicker, which is pretty amazing. And then I've got Ayton as my center. He has a 1.2% multiplier.
I like Ayton tonight.
So I like Ayton. So if we look at Nikola Jokic, he's got a 1.0 multiplier. Not overly exciting. He could get a poor man's triple-double and get, 15 points, 10 boards, 10 assists in 27 minutes, and they're beating Golden State by 40. That doesn't really help us. Golden State could pull, like maybe someone gets hot like Shake Milton did this weekend, or like the Wizards did in their comeback against the Bucks. I just find that a less likely outcome and harder to do at altitude. So I don't think that'll happen. Other guys that got consideration from me, Marquise Chris in that game. They're going to need bigs. He's one of them, if not the only one, but a 1.7 multiplier for him. Derek Favors, 1.65. Don't know how they're going to close that out. Daniel Tice, 1.65. I also have him on the short list. Problem is that locks at 7:30. So I had to push it back so I could make a decision, look into it a little more between Chris and Ayton are probably going to be my choices there. So that's sort of my placeholder lineup. I've got that in a few contests. I will put it in to their $12 one most likely. Just curious to see how much it overlays and how much I can fix on my little DK debacle here that I've got going on. But see, this is why you only want to play as much money as you're ready to lose, because it's a lot less stressful.
I feel like that's a slogan somewhere. Play as much money as you're ready to lose.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's mine. It's if you lose, you lose.
That's mine.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? I don't know. You have to. If I had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, like Alex, tens of thousands like Adam all the time, I probably would not be on air up until lock. But because I'm only playing 100 or 200 or $300, yeah, I'm fine.
Sure, I remember when was it? It was during MLB, and I had the 150 max $20 lineups, and my CSV wouldn't upload, and I was like, man, this is so weird. And I was having a struggle. And I think I was on with Jake, and 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, I'm like, dude, you know what? Forget it. I did one lineup, and I'm just like, all right, as long as it just cashes, that's all I care about tonight, whatever the case may be. EMAC, it was on the money line and didn't cash.
Oh!
And I was like, dude, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. This is the worst feeling in the world, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. And that's what you kind of have to learn. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you're just like, it's out of your control. You're like, all right, it is what it is.
So let's see. But now I've got a mess to clean up in my upload file, because some of my lineups did get in and some of them didn't. So let's resort this and let's knock out the guys that did get in.
You ever do a dummy lineup and it's actually a pretty fire lineup, and you're just you keep it because you don't want to mess with it because it actually is somewhat decent?
Not for a train like this. I don't. Oh, I'm actually. How many lineups got in? Oh, this will be interesting. Actually, it looks like only one or two of my lineups may have gotten in. Huh. With people that are actually playing. So, which is a shame. So I have one lineup with Cody Zeller. That is my only lineup with anybody from the Charlotte game.
Really?
Well, let's filter and see. Oh. I lied. That lineup is a third of my entries.
That's the lineup you got to root for tonight.
Yes. Well, now I have a lot of Cody Zeller. All right. So
hey, go big or go home, you know?
I'll have to sort that out here in a minute. But actually, this is a good lesson. So let's talk SuperDraft real quick again. So they're up to 1,500. They need to get to 3,500 basically to fill. Mm-hmm. So right now we have 18 minutes left. They're at 1,480 divided by 3,468. They are only 42% full. Mm-hmm. Guys, if you're not taking advantage of situations like this, because it's just not that contest that's not full. They've got, some smaller dollar stuff or, things that are single entry that aren't going to fill. And that's what you also want to look at and find out, because the other night I got into like 5 or 6 of their contests and they all had room in them. And because it was like the 4-point play, which was $4, and it was their $1 one, et cetera, percentage wise, they actually had a little bit better of a reduced rake than their big one did. So you've got to look at just more than the 1 or 2 at the top if you want to, do a little bargain hunting here and there. So
a couple times I'll take what I'll do is I'll take like the boomer bust tool and I'll tie it in with kind of where they're at. I'm talking about like the boomer bust tool with like Draftkings and Fanduel, and tie it in with where they're at in the multiplier and the projection, rather than just using the SuperDraft projections. And, and sometimes it actually it kind of helps you see where you definitely should roster some guys based on their multiplier and tie it in with those types of projections and boomer bust. So it's just different. I only do a few lineups on SuperDraft every night. It's nothing crazy. I'm still trying to get used to it and stuff like that, but it's interesting.
Yeah, no, that does sound interesting. Oh man, some of my lineups did get in. All right. You know what? We're going to rebuild a bunch though. Okay. So other plays on SuperDraft. So let's look over here at our projections, because their scoring is a little bit different. So they have, 3 points for blocks and steals. You do get double and triple bonuses. They do have a half point for bonus for 3-pointers. So what they've done is basically taken FanDuel and DraftKings and just gone with the highest of each one and then tacked the multiplier on that. So we don't have to worry about salaries. So if you wanted to play Zion and LeBron, and you wanted to play, who are the other superstars tonight? Anthony Davis, et cetera, all in one lineup, you could. Nikola Jokic, and all of a sudden we're over the salary cap and we need 5 more guys. Can't do that. You can at SuperDraft. So it's all about understanding what other people are going to do and how they're going to leverage off things. So Zion is going to be the most popular player tonight. Jaylen Brown will be number 2. I will be shocked if those guys are not on 70% or more of all rosters. Why is that the case? Well, they have excellent multipliers and they're both in good situations. But if you're feeling like I talked earlier on the show, and there's a little uncertainty there with, this was me, what are they going to do with Zion's minutes? The first time they're on he's on a back-to-back. The back-to-back is tomorrow. It's game 1 of a 3 and 4. But by the way, 4 of their next 5 games starting tomorrow are on ESPN, and they're, the league gets pissy when people sit on those games. And by the way, they want to watch Zion. So obviously he'll play tonight, but does he play 24 minutes if they're up by 20? Remember, they're favored at home by 11. And does he not need to play much in the fourth quarter? They're going to let him rest. I would say probably. Even though this one is at home, they'll play him tomorrow. It's a televised game. And then they're back at home on Friday.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought. Now,
I can see it.
How much do I want to bet everything on that? Because I'm just going to play one lineup or not. I'm probably going to go with Zion. But that would be where you need to start thinking about things if you're doing the mass multi-entry and how you want to get in or out of these different things.
Yeah, even if he puts up 35 points, he still reaches 52 points. You know what I'm saying? 53 points. So, Yeah, I mean, that's difficult if you think that he's not going to play. But I mean, once again, it's too tough, man. I mean, he's someone who can easily get there, even if he does play some light minutes, as we saw when he came into the league. 15, 16 games ago, whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, I like it. So I'm okay with that. Not opposed to it.
All right, so crunch number 2 here. Let's see how many lineups I need to make. Got 14 minutes. Okay, I got that number in my mind. So now I'm going to be getting a bunch of Malik Beasley suddenly is shot up because now I don't have those Charlotte guys. So I'm going to be 35% Beasley, 35% Williamson, 35% Russell, 35% Ingram, 28% Holiday, 28% Powell. I got 25% of Burks. I've got a bunch of the Toronto guys. I've got them capped so they're hitting their minute stuff. But see, I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want. All I want from these lineups here is to not be just destroyed and out of it. And that's what I've learned, that by doing these games later, or setting your lineups with these later games helps you out. I did the same thing. I did just one hockey lineup tonight, but I didn't play anybody that started before 8:00. Because there's a couple chuckleheads that have a podcast coming up here, Chris. There will be a little dinner break before they get to it, but just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, man. This is a long run right here.
It is. So Eddie, and I forget who I filled in for, but you guys owe us. But it's this is all in good fun, and we'll have breaks here at some point as well. So I'm just kind of looking here. Bradley Beal making it 1% of my lineups. I'll probably put my thumb on the scale, get him in some more, make a couple with him and maybe De'Aaron Fox. I also like Belitia, who I think is someone who is intriguing. I think he's okay on SuperDraft as well. Washington doesn't have a traditional center. They don't even really have a stretch 5 per se. So they'll be playing more or less power forwards there, which fits in just fine for him. We do have Jaylen Brown, of course, here at that earlier game. So I'm going to make sure I'm above the field on him since I missed out on all of the Charlotte value. Mm-hmm. And this is just how you can recover your lineup. This is also kind of giving you guys a little insight on what you do for late swap. Different information comes in. How do you handle it? What do you do with it? So, this is where you're rebalancing stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And that's something I think people should practice from time to time, or just see how it works, because I don't, this happens to me more often than I would like, but that's a function of me being on air up until the show. Or till lock. For you guys that don't, I mean, maybe you have kids at home, or your wife's like, oh my God, I need you to do this. The baby's crying, etc. And all of a sudden you could be stuck. You don't want to get mad and angry, because that doesn't help anybody. So you just try to figure out how to work around it. So that's what I'm doing now. And then I will upload this, and then we will talk some more SuperDraft. Because I just want a fighting chance. That's all. All right. So that took care of all my lineups that I had nobody locked in. Now I have Cody Zeller locked in the third of my lineup. So that's a little harder to fix. Just because if they're all the same, Fantasy Cruncher late swaptimizer, at least I haven't figured out how to do it. It'll just remake the same lineup over and over. But what I do is fortunately, I've got Cody Zeller locked in here at power forward. I will say to Fantasy Cruncher, you can only play him at power forward, and because he is the first guy in, they'll just slot him there, and I won't have to worry about moving him. Or if I need to move him, you could start to use, say, hey, just use this position in utility, or just use this, so you can make your swapping easier. But this is something you want to try out when there's less pressure on you, because I've yelled at the computer. My dogs hid from me for a while because I yelled at her because I was mad what happened. And that's when I just said, you know what? That's a lot of yelling. We don't need to do that anymore.
No, not at all.
Life's too short. SuperDraft is 1,600 empty. I am just going to click on there because I'm in. So let's say enter this lineup. You can enter multiple times. They do have late swaps. So if you wanted to play, let's say, Jaylen Brown is your favorite in this one, and then figure everything else out, you absolutely can, because you got another half hour after this. So I wouldn't want to be without Jaylen Brown in this scenario, but I would also not want to be leaving all this overlay on the table. If I look just at the Boston Brooklyn game, I think Gordon Hayward is very much in play at a 1.45 multiplier. I think Karis LeVert is at 1.55, still a tough matchup, but I think he's definitely involved in the tournament. I think Marcus Smart is adequate. Remember, he was dealing with an illness as well, but he's playing. We know Kemba Walker's going to play somewhere between 24 and 25 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. I don't want him, but there should be some extra minutes available, especially with a heavy usage guy like Jason Tatum out of the lineup. He is in his hot stretch, which, my God, it's been phenomenal. He has almost a 32% usage. That's like LeBron James.
Yeah.
So that's got to go to other guys, and Kemba's not going to be taking a lot of it. Those would be the main ones. So, and again, Jaylen Brown, you say that again. At center, you can consider Daniel Tice at 165. I think that's okay. I would still, if I was only making one or two lineups, rather go with DeAndre Ayton, who's a 125. But I could see getting to it if you're going to build out. I'd probably build about 4 or 5 lineups before I went with somebody besides Ayton, or I forget who the other one I liked was there. Or Marquise Chris at 1.7 before I would put in Daniel Tice. But Tice and Marquise Chris map out very similar to each other. So, no biggie there.
I do like Ayton being power forward eligible on Draftkings.
Yes, that is helpful for him.
So that dual position, I mean, you're technically getting a center at the forward position too. So I mean, in reality, you could run 3 centers essentially in any lineup, which is pretty interesting.
All right, let's get back on SuperDraft. But now we got 7 minutes left, and oh my God, they're a third empty. All right, I'm probably gonna put I'm just gonna put in another lineup. I've clawed my way back. I was up, and then I got aggressive, and I played 5 lineups one night, and I didn't cash a single one. So I've clawed my way back up, but I've been very disciplined with it. But this kind of overlay is where I'm thinking.
How much overlay is in it? Because I'm about to add some more.
1,200 empty spots.
What? How is that possible?
Well, people are carried away and doing other things, I guess.
All right. Well, I'll fire in a couple more lineups.
So let's say even if it gets to now somebody just did a bunch. Let's say it gets to 2,900.
Yeah.
Let's say 3,000. So if it gets to 3,000 out of 3, 4, 6, 8, they are barely going to rake it, and it will have 14% room. So basically that means that's not true overlay, but you're not paying the rake. They are still paying out more than they're bringing in. Anything less than 3,000, and you're getting actual overlay here.
Gotcha.
Which is a rarity. Now I would be firing up that a skosh more, but I got to go figure out how I'm going to quickly lock in Cody Zeller here in a few lineups. But fortunately, you know what? That just says those lineups only have Cody Zeller and Jaylen Brown. I like Jaylen Brown.
I mean, Cody Zeller, I mean, he's 6'3", 6-3 right now, and Rozier's 5-2-2 in the first 6-7 minutes of the game, so not too bad.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna accept locking in Jaylen Brown at shooting guard and Cody Zeller in those lineups. I think that's fine. Those are 2 of the better plays, and I'm gonna go look here at SuperDraft because there's just 4 minutes left, and I need a little SuperDraft. And again, if you guys have not signed up, they're doing a lot of shows with us. They're doing these contests where if they can lop 1 or 2 games off of the slate and start a half hour later, they're going to do that. And that's very nice because that gives us a chance to talk about them a little more and get you guys in there for these contests, which, this is how I made my bankroll way back in the day. And Eddie's talked about it a lot as well, is this type of thing used to be what it was like on DK and FanDuel. They were running overlay. They only had 10% rake. It was just easier to win. You don't get that as much. Everybody's matured, so it's the newer sites that are using this as a strategy. We've seen Yahoo do it a few times, just built in, but now they've gone away from it as they've gotten more established. Now we're seeing SuperDraft that says, hey, as part of our marketing, I'm entering another one here. I might do a third one, Chris, just because, again, it doesn't happen like this all that often. That they've got six, they're 800 spots short here. So I think they'll get to 3,000. So this will probably be rake free tonight, which is very, very nice, because that means also we have 15% less people to beat. Minimum cash here. And if you follow Alex's projections and make a few tweaks here or there, and you're just doing one lineup, minimum, or you usually can get a decent enough lineup that you double up. I can't remember if that's what their minimum cash is. Let me look at that right now. Where are the rules, prizes? There we go. So, okay. So minimum cash is 1.5. I've been able to double up. So what I've been doing is I've been playing 2 lineups, and I had been fortunate enough to finish at the top about 12%, it looks like, which doubles. And then if my other one doesn't cash, it still kind of nets out. It's $24 in, 25 out. So that helped me get back a little bit to where I was back nearly to break even again. And I had my $20 of super cash that I went through, which was nice. But I'm going to play a little more than I do normally. So this is kind of a bankroll management lesson. I just am playing around for me because I want to see if I don't have to redeposit. But I was as low as like $30, and heading in today I was back up to like $90.
Nice.
But I've got about 30 in play right now, just because I put 2 contests in here, and I'll play the 4-point play, and they have some 50-50s and stuff, which is just kind of fun.
I couldn't imagine Max entering SuperDraft, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Serge Ibaka officially out. We were expecting that.
Yeah.
So, no worries there. All right, we're down to mere seconds left, and SuperDraft is at 2,800 now. So we'll see. I get the little calculator out.
What's fun about SuperDraft? You could stack that New Orleans.
Oh yeah,
New Orleans Timberwolves game and just go all in on it.
Yeah, kick back and enjoy.
Yeah, not bad.
All right, 30 seconds left. So by the time you guys are hearing this, will be full. But we're at 2,900 of 3,468. So let's see how close my prediction of 3,000 holds. But again, they have late swap. They are fantasy cruncher friendly, and we do have projections for them here, which again, with the multiplier and all the scoring and the triple double and double bonuses and all of that, makes it helpful to have someone else do the heavy lifting. I think tomorrow the SuperDraft projections will probably be free, but it'll be close. All right, Chris, it looks like we're at 29.53.
All right.
I am going to get another cough drop here before I start coughing.
Well, it was a pleasure, Emac.
Pardon?
It was a pleasure, as always.
Yeah, so let's see where we are, because we will be able to see what Jaylen Brown's at here. Sorry, I didn't hit the cough button in time. You heard that one.
You got Corona?
Yeah.
Nice.
It certainly seems that way. All right. So each of our lineups that were $12 are making $12.20. So there was a tiny bit of overlay. When you're making more than what you put in when it first starts, that's what overlay is. If the contest isn't quite full, that is called the reduced rake. They are still making money on it, but not very much. So technically,
you all right?
Yeah, well, let's stop talking here in a sec. Technically, they are at 2,953 out of 3,468. So that is 85% full. So they just barely missed breaking even. So I'm sure they're happy with it. We're happy with it. And you guys should be happy with it as well. But with that, Chris, you want to sign us off here?
Yeah, man. EMAC, get better. You know, someone said get some limes to go with that coronavirus of yours. But no, it was a great show. Appreciate everyone. If you can, please like, subscribe, and thank you to continue to show us love. And good luck, everyone, tonight. Someone take something down, man. Hopefully, someone posts a 6-figure screenshot. It's always nice to see that.